I do that, someone says I look like the chipmunk from Caddyshack. Remember? All burned out. I know it's not what it goes, but anyway. What's up, everybody? It is Sunday afternoon. I probably should have shaved. Probably should have donned some nicer clothes for this special occasion. I want to thank you all. I am humbly appreciative of all of the questions that you sent in for this episode. This is your first ever Q&A, Ask Don Tony Anything episode on YouTube. It is Sunday, October 11th, and originally this was going to be a live recording. Reason why I did it earlier, well, the true reason is I'm taking my significant other out to dinner tonight. She's comfortable enough that she's going to go to a restaurant that we haven't been in over a year, and they're very close with my family. So I called them up and I said, look, you taking reservations? They said, absolutely. I was like, I'd like a table for two. But is there any way you could put me like in a distant corner so we don't have like waiters going in and out of the cooking area and this and that? And like, got the perfect spot for you. So we're going out to dinner tonight. And another reason why I decided to pre-record this is I love our live audience. Absolutely love interacting with a lot of you. Sometimes the chat is so busy. Sometimes I don't see some of your comments until after the show is over, but I do look at everybody's. Because there's so many questions that were sent in for this show, if I would have did this live, there would have been feedback, comments, reaction, additional questions, retorts, and who knows how long this show would have gone. And you know me. I mean, I have no problem doing long shows, but the fact of the matter is, yours truly does a show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, now Sunday. You know, I don't expect all of you out there to sit every week and watch or listen to 12 plus hours of shows. So the idea is to do these shows a little bit less time. This way you get to enjoy all the shows every week and not be overloaded, because I know that a lot of you out there enjoy other people's podcasts as well, whether it's Jason Solomonster, JD from New York, Joe Cronin, Lee Sanders, Wrestling Soup. I mean, there's just so many shows out there. And then, my God, Wrestling Days and other things. There's a plethora, and we're not even including all the blue check marks and all the wrestlers that have their podcasts and they Twitch and they play games. You know, so obviously I understand. I don't expect you to listen or watch to every little second of what I do. So we're going to really make a concerted effort to chop these down a little bit further. You know, a lot of you out there have been telling me, DT, you should do after shows. And I know some people do that already. But the idea is that you keep the main show tight and, a lot shorter. And then if people want to hang out and just chew the fat for another half an hour, that'll be recorded too. But it'll basically be like off the cuff. So if you decide you have extra time and you want to watch that also, then you get the opportunity. So I'm actually looking into that, and it looks like it may be happening. Now, as far as future Q&As here, little format change and a favor I need to ask all of you out there. First off, for the future ones that I do, what do you want to call them? Do you like Q&A, Ask DT Anything, the mailbag? I mean, post in this comment section what you think these should be called from now on. If you have a creative name, but it obviously needs to mean that it's question and answers and mailbag and stuff like that. You don't say like, coffee with DT, because nobody even knows what that is, as it doesn't allude to question and answers. Now, another thing is, my original plan was to do these every 3 weeks. We post the first episode, which is right now, let it sit online, whether it's YouTube or audio only, for a week, let everybody enjoy it. Then after a week, post a new thread where everybody can post their questions. We wait 2 weeks, and then we do the show again. So the Cliff Notes version will be every 3 weeks. So many of your questions came in that, number one, we can't wait every 3 weeks from now on. So from now on, we're going to do it every 2 weeks. This way, you don't have to wait so long to get your questions answered. And at the same time, since we're doing it more often, we could go through the questions a lot quicker. We don't need 200 questions every episode that we do. So I'd rather do it every 2 weeks instead of 3, and less questions come in. So it just keeps the flow a little bit better. But here's another thing. If you want to post questions for the next episode, which will be 2 weeks from today, October 25th, Sunday, post them here in the comment section for this video. Don't wait for another preview. In this video, in the comment section, post your questions for the next episode. You are going to hear me answer everybody's questions tonight. So you may have a follow-up. You may have a retort. You may disagree with me on something. You may want to add something to what I said on this episode. So put it in here. So we hit 2 birds with 1 stone. You get to enjoy this episode, and you could also post your questions for future episodes. Now, one last thing. If I don't answer your question, 99% certain you have been shadow banned on this channel. I don't like shadow banning people. I honestly don't. But there's a few people out there that, like to troll, and I always admire some good trolling. But some people just don't know where the line should be, not crossed. Number 2, there's a lot of people out there that like poking the bear. Some people don't like me. Some people don't like some changes of programming. And, me, I could go in 2 different directions with it. I could start a little carnival game called Poke the Bear. You poke the bear enough, I'll start posting screenshots of other DMs, or, that'll just start a lot of controversy online and just, really show how it's going to backfire in their face. Or I just let it go. And we just have fun, enjoy, a little bit of escape from all the crap that's going on in this world right now. And that's the road I have decided to do. So no drama, save the drama for your mama. Let's just have a great show. But the point is, and I will admit, I love that YouTube shadow bans instead of just a flat out ban. And for those that don't know what that is, I'll give you Twitter, for example. If I don't like you, or, even if you've never said anything, because I love when people say, I got banned, I never said anything about this person. Well, it's because people don't like you, and there's people that don't like me as well that have just banned me. And I'm like, and I don't want to, I'll give you one example of a person that I know most of you out there don't give 2 flying what's about, but Scott Armstrong, okay, the referee in WWE. I have never said anything bad about the Armstrong family, but he's got me banned. I have no clue. I had never even said like Scott Armstrong sucked when he was back. I never said 2 words about the guy. But obviously something about me he doesn't like. I respect that. That's cool. But when you're banned on Twitter, you can't see that person's account. That's it. The artist that I've always plugged that does the great prints for WWE, Ron Schomburg or whoever it is, he's got me banned. I have no idea why. I bought his art, gave it away, and he's got me banned because he doesn't like me. I respect that. It's cool. Nobody has to like me. But the point is, on Twitter, I can't see either one of their accounts. So on YouTube, it's different. On YouTube, when you shadow ban someone, they could still see your channel. They could still comment, whether it's in the chat room or, the chat room, there's some settings where you can just ban someone from talking, period. But on the comment section, they could post. They could write whatever they want. But when you're shadow banned, they don't realize it. The only people that could see what they wrote are themselves. So there's about a dozen people who are shadow banned, and it's cute because they write insults every week about yours truly. And the only person that could see what they wrote is themselves. They have no idea that I don't see it, that all of you don't see it. And I tweak the settings once in a while. Every couple of weeks, I'll unban everybody just to see what they wrote, and then I ban them right back. So if I don't answer your question, it's likely because you're shadow banned, and nobody's going to see it anyway. So, and, I'll tell you one last thing, and it was one of the questions for today. There's a few people out there that really, really hate my guts. They absolutely cringe that the Donzilla video army is getting very strong. I mean, look, the regular Donzilla army, I've been doing this 24 years. And if you want to talk semantics, I've been doing it 4 decades now. 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. They can't stand. And like I say, the ultimate FU to anybody out there that tries to bring you down, the ultimate FU you could give them is not a nasty tweet, not a one-liner insult, not even cancel culture where you all gang up on the person. The ultimate FU is success and enjoying what you're doing. And trust me when I tell you, when you see the smile on my face on these shows, when you see the smile on Mish's face on these shows, it's genuine. It's absolutely genuine. And that's not PC, and that's not being woke. It's just being, a mature human being, So a few of you out there notice that whenever I post the alert that a show's going to be upcoming, for example, Monday night, we do Breakfast Soup Raw now. It is now turned into that show because everybody loves Mish and I and the dynamic. And, we do on Monday. So Monday afternoon, I'll post the alert that, hey, everybody, tonight, 11:05 p.m., Breakfast Soup Raw returns. Mish and I join us live, super chat, live chat, questions, comments. And not even 30 seconds after I post that, you get 1 or 2 thumbs down. I haven't even done the show yet, and they're giving thumbs down. There's people out there that just, it's their way of basically getting giggles and their way of saying, DT, I hate you. Funny thing about it is on YouTube, and I'm still new to YouTube. I'm only on here for 8 months. When people out there try to compare me to other podcasters out there, they've been on YouTube 5-10 years and saying, oh, look, that person's numbers are 5 times bigger than yours. I'm like, yeah, that person's been on YouTube for 12 years. I've been on here for 8 months. Of course it's going to be that way. Let me stay on here for a couple of years and then we'll talk. But it's not even a competition game. But the thing is, I'm learning more and more each day about YouTube and how they operate. And when you give a thumbs down, actually YouTube likes that because you're interacting. You're showing that you're, viewing the channel. And that's what they want more than anything else. They want you on YouTube. So if you give it a thumbs down, you ain't hurting my feelings. If anything, you're basically helping yours truly. So everyone, I'm breathing it in. Give me the thumbs down if you want. It's all good. Just interact. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. Let's turn on a little bit of air so I don't sweat my you-know-what's off. I know I have not cursed yet. I'm trying to get out of the habit because, and I've said this before, I'm trying to get some opportunities to really expand, opportunities that have been offered in the past that I passed up for various reasons that we won't get into here. But the one thing more than anything is I've been advised to really tone down the vulgar language. Yes, I could curse here and there, but I don't want it to be, at every other sentence. Curse, curse, curse. So ultimately, by the end of this episode, I probably will have a few bombs thrown out, but I'm consciously trying to avoid that. And believe me when I tell you, if I never even said what I just said to you, and then I didn't curse the entire show, unless I tried to talk censored, like, oh, kiss my butt. When you do things, then people are truly avoiding curses. But, if I just talk regular and just avoided those words, you probably wouldn't even notice. So let's run through these, shall we? Philip Maffey, what is your favorite I Quit match? We haven't seen a good I Quit match in a while. Well, I'll tell you, for me, my all-time favorite I Quit match is Terry Funk versus Ric Flair, 1989 Clash of Champions. And I know that there's some other great I Quit matches over the years. Mick Foley, Ric Flair, mid-2000s. I don't know, it's 2005. That was awesome. Beth Phoenix, Molina actually had a decent one. And I could go down the list. John Cena, JBL had an awesome one as well. But the reason why I always go back to Flair Funk, and I'll even go back to Tully Blanchard, Magnum TA, is because of the extended storyline, the feud that was attached to it. We've had some good I Quit matches over the years, but there wasn't much of a storyline. And, look, as years go by, the length of feuds diminish, with the exception of this year because of COVID. Everything has been extended. I always bring up Sasha Banks and Bayley when you realize they were supposed to have their match at WrestleMania, which was, 6 months ago? And they extended the feud and they just went on the scenic route because, you don't want to burn through big, important storylines when your audience is far less than what it normally would be. Not only that, I think a lot of people don't realize this as well. Live events, fans buying tickets, that's money. That's profit for WWE, AEW, or anywhere else. When they're at the events, they buy the merchandise. That's profit for all these companies. So you burn through big-time feuds, and fans can't even go to live events or buy merchandise. And yes, you could buy merchandise online, but it's not the same, because people want to wear it at the shows. They want it. So they try not to burn through things as quickly. And we see it in AEW as well. I brought up how some feuds would take place like every other week. Best Friends and Santana Ortiz is a great example of that. Something happens to Mama's Caravan, something should happen the following week, not 2 weeks. So they were doing it, they were just extending it, milking it. So as decades go by, feuds are a lot shorter just because of the attention span and the demand for immediate gratification. And everything is turned up, very, very fast. So you got to churn and keep, recycling and creating and recreating and just moving on and just keep like an ongoing, the days of having year-long feuds are very, very rare. Even 6-month feuds are very, very rare. And again, COVID, it's a little bit different. But Terry Funk, Ric Flair, Magnum TA, and Tully Blanchard, those were long, extended feuds, which made the I Quit matches even more special. Now, I know a lot of you out there probably say to me, DT, how could you not include The Rock versus Mick Foley, that I Quit match? Look, I absolutely loved the match when it first happened. When I watched it the second time and saw how Mick Foley's head was split open just from those chair shots, then you see beyond the mat, and you see from his wife's point of view and his kids hysterically crying. The match makes me uncomfortable. It is, and Vince at the end, after the match is over, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. Don't do it again. It just was too disturbing. So that match, although told an excellent story, the ending was kind of stupid. I quit. Those are the ones that I go to. And yes, there are many others, but I give you just a few. Colum Webb, what software do I use? For example, making it with remote guests at such good quality, and how do you estimate the show is to make and put together overall? Well, to give you the Cliff Notes, the very short version of it, I use vMix for my video software. I know a lot of you use OBS and a few others out there. I love vMix because for me, it's just a lot simpler to use. Yes, there's some features that I don't have that a lot of other YouTubers have on OBS software. I know even with Super Chats, things pop up on the screen, GIF files and all this other stuff. And me, I don't have it configured. It's a little bit more difficult. But, I'll tell you this much, and, this is not a shot towards anybody else, but it's just a fact. If you're going to do a show, my best advice, even if you haven't done a show yet, or you're looking to do one, or you started one, or if you've even been around for a while, it involves a lot of learning, a lot of research. Do not have to sit back. I'm wearing regular shorts, everybody. And, oh, let's do the show. Blah, 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 blah. Hang up. Since 1997, me doing this, there was rule number one for yours truly. Rule number one is always be authentic. Talk to everybody like we're all friends, having a couple of drinks, talking about whatever. Be honest and authentic. Have the you-know-whats, have the balls to say what you want to say, whether it's popular or unpopular. Some people can't accept the truth, don't want to hear the truth. They just want to hear cake and ice cream all day long. But another thing is never have to depend on someone else. Because if that person is not around, you have a problem. And, you always take the helm, be in control. There's always going to be someone out there that knows more than you. There are a lot of people out there that know a hell of a lot more than yours truly. But always know you could do everything yourself if no one was around. Because if you take control and you spend the time and put in the hours, it will be reflective on what you do. And there's a lot of people out there that, if someone else is not around, they're dead in the water. So a lot of research, because YouTube has some awesome videos, how-tos and learning. VMix has an awesome YouTube channel. You can't cram it in overnight. A lot of people, and I think because for years and years and years, I wanted to expand and never did. But, it was June of 2019 that I started telling everyone that I was going video in January. And I think a lot of people out there thought, he's not going to really do it. He's not going to really do it. But in those 7 months between June and the end of January, all I was doing in my free time was watching videos, reading how to do this, how to do that, best equipment, best software, best things to start off. And you have to let it sink in so you start to understand it. And once I started doing video, we had a lot of bumps in the road in the beginning. The microphone would shut off. There'd be video buffering. Things would not be smooth. And a few times, and you remember those early episodes this year, a few times you see me sweating like a pig, even though it's 20 degrees out. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know why this is not working, this and that. Once you start understanding it, and it must be a codec. Oh, it must be this. Oh, it must be an audio setting. Oh, this must have been disabled. Oh, it's like second nature. You just pick up these things. And, so it's not just what software you use. You have to take the time. It's not going to happen overnight. When it starts to click in and it sinks in and you understand it, whether it's software, diet, any type of trade you want to learn, it'll start making sense. When it starts making sense, then you go balls out. But for me, I use vMix for my video software. I also have 2 internet connections, and you cannot skimp on internet. You have to have a really good connection going in and coming out. It's great if you could download a song in 5 seconds, but if you don't have great upload speed, that's where you run into problems with buffering, with, gaps of silence. And, it's not just you hosting the show, it's who is also on the show with you. If you have awesome internet and they got crap, there's really nothing you can do to compensate that, unless if it's video, you put them on the lowest video setting. So right now, other than me, the only person I do video with is with MISH. And MISH does not skimp. MISH understands that you cannot be a big, successful podcaster running on the cheap. You may be able to get away with it for a little while, but in the end, it catches up to you. So when I connect to him and I put like an auto setting and just use whatever settings, I know that his settings are solid. When I was doing some Zoom stuff with Julian, I know a lot of you know Julian, he doesn't skimp on his internet quality. So, you could trust the connections, but, you just have to, you just have to just learn. I mean, I also use Hindenburg, Journalist Pro, to edit and run codecs and clean up audio-only shows and everything. I use Adobe Audition as well. Hell, if I want to go primitive, I still use Goldwave. If any of you out there remember Goldwave. Goldwave I used like 15, 20 years ago. I still have my unlimited license. And that's another thing too. You ever get into shows, do not skimp on the software as well. Me, I have a lifetime subscription with Hindenburg. It's not cheap. Hundreds of dollars. I didn't start out that big. As you go along and you get a little bit of fundage together, invest. I have a mirrorless camera now, Sony a6100. Right next to it is a Logitech webcam. Now, I have them right next to each other because if I ever do the show and there's something wrong with my camera for any reason, okay, no problem. I turn the other one on. Video quality might be a little bit less quality, but boom, always have a backup plan as well. Because internet is not perfect. I record shows for other people through Discord, and I always tell them, make sure you record also, because once in a while my internet goes out. And if my internet goes out, I don't want to be blamed for no show recording. So you always have right now for my mixer, I have a Rodecaster Pro. And it is by far my favorite mixer I have ever used because not only are the settings beautiful and easy to learn, but it has a built-in recorder as well. So right now, no BS, I'm recording through my vMix, I'm recording through my audio, and if I was doing something on Discord, I would be recording through a program called Craig. So I'd have 2 and 3 backups in case something were to go wrong. I used to record through vMix and YouTube in case anything went wrong with YouTube. But I've noticed that YouTube is pretty reliable. So, but that's pretty much what I use. And obviously, a good microphone as well. Don't you start off conservative. You got to build your audience. And you got to build your audience, slowly. But as you get bigger, that's when you improve and you improve. Even lighting. I mean, I can't really show you the lights right now. But I started with some very cheap lighting. Little by little, you expand. I got an Elgato in front of me. I think it's called Elgato. I have, I don't even remember the brands, but I have LEDs which give off less temperature. I have the air conditioner on because it gets hot in here with all these lights going. You use regular bulbs, forget it. Be like Arizona in June in your room. Not fun. But, and I know a lot of you out there, you're probably saying like, wow, the show's already 28 minutes in and he only answered 2 questions. No, we'll be flying through them because I know there's a lot of you out there also that always ask about equipment and software and setup. And another thing too, you got to get a nice speaker. It's, I can't remember the name of the speaker, but it's an MR524. And the idea of this speaker, it's only one, is when you listen to the audio output, it plays it as if it's supposed to be heard. There's no added bass, there's no added equalizers. How you hear your audio is how it comes out through the speaker. That's why I really don't have to use headphones all that much. There's a lot of people out there that'll do a podcast by themselves and they use headphones. And you're saying to yourself, there's nobody in the room. Why do you need headphones for? Because they need some way to hear their audio back to make sure that, things aren't getting shangada. I use it with volume meters, the speaker, I could hear everything going. So hope that answered it. Golden Boy, 220-608. Do I still think that there will be a COVID vaccine before the presidential election? If it's not right before the election, it's going to be right after. And to be honest with you, my gut feeling tells me it's going to be after the election. And the reason why I say that is because you can't announce it and then the next day it goes out. You know what I mean? So even if they were to announce it, let's say next week, like, oh, the vaccine is ready to go, it's going to take them a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get everything sent out. And it's not just being shipped out. Your doctors have to handle, all these people. They have to set everything up, make appointments. It's not going to be like you go to the grocery store and everybody's just standing in line, no appointment necessary. I'm sure there might be some places that you could do that. The point is, my neighborhood, how many people live in your neighborhood? Thousands, maybe? Imagine them all showing up for 3 doctor's offices because the COVID is ready. So there's going to be a lot of, just logistics that is involved. It's not just shipping it out to the doctors. So even if they announce it before the election that it's ready, I think it will not be available for a good month. I will say this, the vaccine will be here by the end of the year. It's got to be. And I already have talked to my doctor how I can get it, this and that. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, you're not on the as vulnerable as others. And sure. But, the thing is, you got to remember, I bring up the flu shot as an example. Half of our country doesn't get flu shots for various reasons. It has nothing to do with Trump being president, Biden being president, Obama being president, Kermit the Frog being president, The Rock, Oprah. It doesn't matter. Some people just don't want to get flu shots or vaccines for fear of autism, fear of allergies, fear of, something going wrong. So, when people say, oh, once the vaccine is here, the virus will be gone. This virus will be here for years because there's always going to be people out there that aren't going to get the vaccine. And you know what? I know that everybody in my family is getting it. So I don't have to worry about one member of my family that doesn't get the vaccine. They don't believe in vaccines. And then you got to always be careful. Now, yes, I understand what you're going to say. DT, if you're vaccinated, you could be around that person and you're not going to get them infected. Right. The problem is you go to the store, you go to the post office, you go to a WWE, an AEW event, you go to the bank, and how do you know the people around you if they got vaccinated or not? So masks are going to be around for years. And probably the people who are not vaccinated are going to be the ones wearing the masks more than anything. But I think by the end of the year, we will have it. Danny, 2 November 18. In the current situation, should he leave his current employer because he's not happy with it or keep working until he finds a good job opening? I may not find a job as perfect as I expect. He has emergency funds in place. Well, my honest answer to you, and, look, my shows are opinion. Whether I talk wrestling, politics, health, diet, I'm not an expert in any of those fields. All I could do is give you my opinion on it, and you could use part of it to base your overall decision. It's not a cop-out. But the thing is I don't know if you're married or single. I don't know if you have kids. I don't know if you're engaged. I don't know if you own a house or if you rent. I don't know if you have a car payment or you own your car outright or if you even drive. The thing is that emergency funds are fine, but what happens if those emergency funds run out and you still don't have a job? I have told my fiance, she's still not working. And, she left her other job, because of COVID. But she also had a miserable time there because she had a few gossipers in her office. When I talk about people on social media, imagine working with people like that in an office. Her job became very miserable, but she needed the money because of bills. She's got 3 dogs. She's got other responsibilities, expenses, insurance, and she stood there longer. Now, when she left about 2 months ago, she said to me, she goes, "You think I should go back to my old job?" And I can't tell her what to do, but I reminded her why she left. And when those emotions started coming back and how miserable she was there, she realized that, the chances, it's like a bad relationship. You have someone, that's an adult. They're pretty much set on their ways. Someone who's an abuser or verbally or physically or has issues, when they say, "Oh, I'm going to change," chances are they're not. Once you get set in your ways, you're set in your ways. Now, with social media, people, create a certain profile about themselves, which is nowhere near from the truth. And sooner or later, they get caught. And, my answer to all of this is, you got to feel what feels right inside. You got to go with your gut instinct. If your job is, not the greatest, I bring up my father. My father, when I was a kid, worked 3 jobs, worked 18 hours a day. No BS, no bullshit, cursed. My father worked 18 hours a day. And my childhood memories, besides the strap and good times, I mean, my father is awesome. Thank God he's still with us. But I also remember every day like clockwork. I come home from school, he's not there. Time for dinner, he's not there. Then 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, he'd go through the door, sit at the table, eat by himself. Soon as he's done eating, goes and takes a bath, and he's in bed. And that would be 6 days out of the week. And on the 7th, from having so much work, during the week, he would either stay in bed or he would just be in the mode where he's always got to be busy and would just do something just to do something. It wasn't fun for him to work in a gas station, work in a deli, work in a bodega, but that's what he needed to make money. I do all these shows. I work insurance. When COVID hit, I did taxes. I delivered groceries. I got bills to pay. I'm trying to get married, trying to not have amazing credit card debt by the time I walk down the aisle. And the thing is that some of the work that I do is not fun. Insurance right now is terrible. Insurance companies are dropping people left and right because of all the money that they lost. So, I stick it out because it's very rare that you can have a job that you absolutely love. Now, doing the shows is a job. It really is. But I have so much fun doing it, so it doesn't feel like a job. So my answer to you is you got to really look at everything. And you always got to be prepared. Remember what I said before about podcasting. Never depend on other people. Always know that you could do it yourself. Because if something goes wrong, you don't basically, look, doing a podcast especially, all it involves is connecting to a stream, hitting a record button, talking, and that's it. You could post it on free sites. YouTube is free. I mean, you could post it on, Blog Talk Radio still around. So when people are like, I might do a show next year or the year after, that's probably laziness kicking in more than anything else, or the refusal of learning to do things for yourself and trying to find someone to do it for you. So, always look at everything and sit back and say to yourself, if I leave this job and I cannot find something 6 months from now, can I depend on myself if no money is coming in? So you got to really look at everything, be very, very careful. Be very careful. But always put yourself and your family before anyone else. That's most important. Because trust me, my father, I always use him for an example. He didn't enjoy a lot of the work he did. But as long as we had a roof over our head and his car was paid and his house was paid and taxes were paid, insurance and food on the table, him seeing everybody, living comfortably, that was the trade-off for him. So it was brutal, the work he did, but in the end, what he saw as his result was so worth it. It was so worth it. The hard work does pay off. All right, hard work really does pay off. So, Magnolia Coy gets all of WWE, her WWE and AEW news from me. Loves the show. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. Big fan of New Japan. Will I ever cover the G1 or New Japan shows like Wrestle Kingdom and Dominion? Yes, absolutely, and I'm going to be doing it with MISH. MISH is a huge fan of Japanese wrestling. I tried to really include it on Wednesdays. The problem is I do 2 recaps on Wednesdays. Plus, with all of these shows, I'm trying to tighten it, not just time, but to keep the subjects more simple and less. My point is, Monday, Raw recap, any news that transpired over the weekend. Big news. That's it. Wednesday, AEW, NXT, and any other big news that's not Raw or SmackDown. Friday night, SmackDown recap, predictions, quarter-hour ratings, AEW, NXT, any other news, and whatever you guys and gals want to talk about. So this way, when you know that Monday's coming for a show, you know this is what we're going to talk about. When Friday show comes, you know this is what we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about. And Wednesday. So now with Mish, especially being a big fan of Japanese wrestling, I can talk about these topics. It's getting a little chilly in here. You know, that the one thing, and it's not as easy as you think, and this is not throwing shades, it's just a fact. It's not easy to do a show with another co-host or co-hosts when you all don't watch the same products. And, you know in the past, on both sides, hey, did you watch New Japan? No, I didn't watch it. Hey, did you watch AEW? No, I didn't watch it. Hey, did you watch SmackDown? No, I didn't watch it. Or, hey, did you watch SmackDown? Yeah, I watched it. And then the person doesn't know what went down. So it's very hard to prepare when people you do shows with don't watch the same things. So New Japan was a little bit of a casualty because there was so much being discussed on Wednesdays. And because Mondays, some of the promotions I wanted to cover in the past, we couldn't for various reasons. And then, it's not fair also to your co-hosts. It wasn't fair to my co-hosts as well to talk about promotions that they don't follow, because then it's a one-sided conversation. So no, definitely Mish and I will be talking about it. And you will definitely see and hear a lot more New Japan on the shows. And you got to also understand this too. Majority of my audience is in the United States. We do have a tremendous audience. I'd say about 2/3 in the United States and 1/3 is overseas. Even if 100% of my viewer base, listener base was overseas, a very small percentage watch New Japan. Very small. If I did a poll, and I have done it before, how many people watch New Japan? It might be 5%. You don't want to spend loads of time about 5% of your audience that follows. I talk a half an hour about New Japan and only 5% of the audience follows it. Sure, it may interest some people to tune in also, but a majority of them will just skip right through it. So there's got to be a good balance as well. Shezi Ali, thank you for the kind words, my friend. You know I really do appreciate it, and thank you. Danny, let's see. Oh, Danny, I answered your question already. How did I skip that before? Okay, Willie G. With many married couples in wrestling, has there been one or two that the wife was hotter and a bigger deal than the husband? And he was joking by bringing up Mickie James or Lana. I got news for you. As the overall wrestling fan, they probably would view Mickie James as a bigger star than Nick Aldis. You got to also understand Nick Aldis, not as big of an audience as far as the promotions that he wrestled for. But Nick Aldis is a tremendous, tremendous star. It's very hard to use that. I personally prefer when people bring that question up, I prefer to bring up people where the husband and the wife worked for the same promotion. You think of couples over the years, the number one for me on that list is Sable. Sable and Mark Merrow. Mark Merrow was great. I even enjoyed, some of his earlier gimmicks. Johnny B. Bed, it wasn't as bad as people portrayed it to be. But when he went to the WWF, and Sable originally was his valet, and Sable became the tremendous, gigantic star. So, that's probably the number one on my list. And sure, there's other couples in wrestling. You might say Charlotte is a bigger star than Andrade. I don't think there's any dispute for that. But, you also got to remember, it's also how the companies choose to use certain people. So, we could bring up couples all day long. But as far as, the wife being the biggest star, Sable will always be number one on my list. If you want to talk about a couple, I always thought Sonny, God rest Chris Candido's soul. Chris Candido, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. You know, it breaks my heart sometimes. I always see this on social media. By the way, I'm not drinking a beer. This is sparkling water. Topo Chico. I love Topo Chico. That, Gerolsteiner, and Pellegrino water are my 3 go-tos. But I like them because of mineral water, not just sparkling water. So, but if you see me taking a slug, that's what it is. It's not vodka or anything like that. But, you know, it breaks my heart because every so often somebody will post on social media like, what wrestler deaths really hit you the hardest? Very rarely do I ever see Chris Candido on that list. Chris Candido is up there, you know, because I got to know him personally. His brother Johnny is an awesome guy. And, you know, it's one of those, you remember what you were doing, where you were. And I've told that story before. I'll never forget it. You know, I was going to my friend's restaurant in Long Island. It was dusk, and it was a really nice day out. This was right around the ECW kind of invasion of WWE. And I'm not talking 2001. I'm talking when they had brought in Bowles Mahoney and a few others. And I remember getting a phone call on my cell phone. And just so you know detail, I remember I had my white Lincoln at the time, and the sunroof was broken. So I actually was taping plastic on the sunroof because you never know. A storm comes in, it gets rained on, you know. Don't ask me why I even drove that car with broken sunroof. The window was open. And as I finished taping it up, I started walking into my friend's restaurant, and my phone goes off, and it's the Masked Maniac. I answer it. He's hysterical, crying, hysterical. And that's when he broke the news to me. And, you know, that was hard. Driving out to the funeral also was very, very difficult. But, you know, I don't think there's any argument that Sonny was viewed as the biggest star, especially in WWF. ECW, diehard ECW fans, I always thought Chris Candido was the biggest star there because Tammy was always looked at as Sonny. And that's not a knock on Tammy. But in WWF, I think the perception always was Sonny, bigger star than Chris Candido. Dayhawk, what's up, my friend? What made 2002's draft so much better compared to the drafts that came after, especially the one now? Because back then, you didn't have networks involved in the drafts. You would always have Vince McMahon saying, you know, about competition and, you know, Raw versus SmackDown, SmackDown versus Raw. That was always WWF's attempt of trying to be 2 promotions since WCW was out of business and their idea of recreating WCW failed. ECW was out of business. TNA had just launched NWA TNA. So WWF, you know, it doesn't matter what promotion you are. WWF wants to be the only game in town. That's smart business. The more people that watch your product, no matter what age they are, there's another person that might buy a shirt, might buy a pay-per-view. That's why I don't focus on demographics like other people do. But when NWA TNA came around in 2002, you know, WWF wanted to basically come off almost like 2 separate promotions feuded with each other. You know, that's why you at one point had Bischoff versus Stephanie, it's Ric Flair is the consortium and this and that. So in 2002, it was more of just WWF being a promotion and the 2 brands kind of like competing with each other. Now, when you use Fox and USA Network, now you got to use more common sense. And that's why I don't like their social media accounts at all. If they're so competitive with their draft like they're doing now, why would Fox constantly put over stars that are on Raw or the Raw product itself? Or why would, you know, you understand what I'm saying? Then you realize that, you know, the networks don't give a flying you-know-what about Raw or SmackDown. So when you try to make it look like, oh, Fox is doing a draft, you know, I'll give you a great example. Now, I guarantee you nobody even like picked up on this. I brought up Friday. on how ridiculous it was that in storyline, Fox drafted Otis, but didn't draft Tucker. Okay? Why would they just draft Otis and not Tucker? So, you know, we talked about it on Friday's show. Over the weekend, Fox, go to their Twitter account right now, WWE on Fox. They put a picture of Tucker with a broken heart. And Tucker's like, you know, well, or Otis is like, we'll always be family. But think about that for a minute. WWE on Fox is posting the broken heart because they're heartbroken that Otis and Tucker split. And I'm saying to myself, you dumb bastard, you're the one that didn't draft Tucker. Didn't have to be brokenhearted. You could have drafted both. Do you understand? That's why the draft nowadays, if you really want to dissect it, it's not anywhere near as good. Some of it might make sense, Raw drafting all their champions right away, because that is what you would do if you were doing a fantasy league. But when you see the posts like Tucker and others, and I got news for you. I'm starting to think, and I'll probably mention it Monday with Mish, I think maybe Tucker should join Retribution. Just a thought. What does it take to be a good researcher, and how can you tell what information is real or fake? You got to bookmark your reliable sources. I have bookmarks of people who I have trusted for 20 years. You have to just research. You have to look at reliable sources, and you cannot base it on social media. I freaking laugh. I laugh when I see people or hear people that say, my sources tell me blah, 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 blah. Then you realize all their source was a tweet. And the best part is when you confront them and say, you know, who's your source? I cannot tell you. Then that's when you realize they don't got sources. Look, there is fake news in all walks of life. There's been fake news for 100 years. All right. You just have to see who is reliable. You have to, you know, just do the research. And you also got to, that's why I depend more on YouTube than Google. You know, I use Google for information, but on YouTube, you know, I could see what kind of reaction certain people get. See, even with my keto diet being down as much as I am, you know, I just discovered lupin flour. And lupin flour, when done the right way, you can make pasta out of it, and it is very close to regular pasta, very close. And it doesn't affect my blood sugar, doesn't screw up my ketone level. And, you know, I have certain people that I go to over and over again on YouTube. And when they get into, you know, the testing of how your blood sugar reacts to certain things, like I can trust them, you know, instead of just somebody posting an anonymous post somewhere, you know. So you got to just, you know, use your instinct, but you also got to bookmark those, you know, that, and you also got to remember too, there are people out there that just want attention. So they'll just say whatever they say for attention more than anything else. If you especially do a show, never be afraid to not cover certain things simply, you know, because you just want attention for it. That's why I don't cover every little thing. You notice I've been doing this 24 years, and 99.5% of everything that I talk about is true. Like, you never hear me reporting news that's fake, because I try to sift it out. And, you know, when you have all these people, my sources, I heard from someone I know, and then you realize it was just a tweet. You got to really, you know, and you don't build that, you know, that relationship overnight. You know, like I said, I got bookmarks over 20 years old, people that I trust. And you also have to, you know, have some friendships online as well. I have people that give me stuff here and there. And I'm not one of those that races on the line to be first to report. My catchphrase used to be, I don't want to be first, I want to be right. You know, and I still use that to this day. I'd rather be right than to be first. So it's nice, you know, to be first. But, you know, if you're unreliable or if you're wrong most of the time, being first doesn't do anything for you. Do I see myself writing a book now? No. People have told me to. All the stories, all the experiences in my lifetime, people have said I should write a book. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. But as of right now, I don't expect to. I mean, people have been telling me to do a little series on YouTube. Not necessarily a grown-up Don Tony, but basically letting people know a little bit more about me, my upbringing, my personality, just my views and why I evolved to certain things I am today. I might do that in the future. And look, the pleasure about doing that is you're not forced to watch it. It'll be a separate series. And if you don't want to watch, you don't have to. Do I think it's time to retire the penny and nickel tag team belts and make new ones? You know what? The penny belts are a little bit old school. I personally don't mind how belts look as long as they're being utilized the right way. Having a beautiful looking title and the title being a joke or just not being utilized the right way, that's why I say when the Viking Raiders first came into WWE, everybody was complaining about their name. I came up here and said, look, I'd rather have that name and them being utilized the right way than to have a really good, catchy name and they're being used like crap. So I don't really have too much of a problem with the penny titles. They're a little old school. They might be a little bit ugly. But I also think WWE changes the titles for a little bit of eras as well. So, look at the tag team division right now. Everybody complains about the Street Profits, and WWE now going right back to the New Day, Kofi and Xavier Woods, because they know that they're, the ones to fall back on. And the thing that's interesting is, they got drafted to Raw. What's saying that they don't get traded back to SmackDown? You know what I'm saying? So it's the tag team division in WWE is not very strong right now. So changing the belts is not going to change the quality of the division. I'm not saying that all the wrestlers are Shangada, but you see how certain teams are misused or not used at all. And then, they split. We still wanted Otis and Tucker to be tag champs. They should have been tag champs. And look what's going on. So, Eric L. just recently started keto. Was wondering if there's any bread, potato, and alcohol substitutes other than seltzers that he can eat without knocking him out of ketosis. I will tell you right now, Serious Keto is a guy on YouTube that I just started following not too long ago, and he's really, really good with the substitutes. I just talked about lupin flour. There is a pasta out there called Nooda, Gnooda. It's a little expensive, but, somebody gifted me a dozen bags of it, and it's made of lupin flour as well, and it is outstanding. I make it with tomato sauce. I make it macaroni and cheese. I make it with garlic and oil, and it's the closest that I have become, because I'm sure you probably have experienced the rubbery shirataki noodles or whatever they are. There are some substitutes. Go on that channel as a starting point, because you'll see recipes for bread, almond bread, hamburger rolls. That would be your starting point. And, you got to also look at the response from the audience out there. Look at the thumbs up, the thumbs downs, see what, response you get. There's a lot of people with some very catchy things on there, but what I will also tell you is that your blood sugar level, your glucose level might be different than mine or someone else's. It will be. So how someone else's glucose reacts to something, it could be much different than you. Now, I'll tell you, true story. Last night, I had the Nooda pasta with tomato sauce and grated cheese. I ate a nice bowl of it. And I said, I'm going to do my blood sugar test, my ketone level before and after. And the pattern is, and this will be quick, is I test my glucose and ketone level right before I eat. After I finish eating, I test 30 minutes after, an hour after, and 2 hours after. And I check at the 2 hour mark what my ketone levels are, because by 2 hours, your body should be going back to normal, that your blood and your food has already been absorbed. So I don't remember the exact numbers last night. I'm sorry, everyone, about doing this. No cocaine addict, but I haven't taken allergy medicine the last 2 days. So if you see me doing this, that's why. So yesterday I had the pasta, and before I ate it, my glucose level, I think, was at 89, and my ketone level was 0.8. 89.8. A half hour in, my glucose went from 89 to 90. 1 hour in, it went from 90 to, I think, 93. And then 2 hours in, it went back to 88. So that Nuda pasta, even with tomato sauce, which has a little bit of natural sugar in it, did not affect my glucose level at all. And my ketone level started at 0.8. 2 hours later was still at 0.8. So I realized I could eat pasta every day if I want now. And, you know, it's pretty damn good. So that would be my advice. And, you know, don't rush it. You're going to hit bumps in the road. I hit bumps in the road. And you'll start to see what works good for you. But my strongest recommendation, get a blood glucose and ketone meter. You know, I prick my fingers every day checking my levels. It doesn't hurt. When I realize now, when I see these commercials for diabetics, that they get a meter and you don't have to prick your finger as much. It doesn't have to use a lot of blood. It doesn't hurt. I pricked my fingers like 6 times yesterday. I don't have any pain whatsoever. You see these commercials, I don't have to prick my finger as much as before. What are you, a pussy? This doesn't hurt. And when you prick your finger, if there's even a little blood, you just go like this. You massage your finger and the blood goes to... It's nothing, man. It's nothing. Just keep in mind, a lot of these commercials are just trying to grab your money, and they overhype everything. So, and as far as beverage suggestions, I love Zevia. Zevia it's a diet soda that has stevia as the sugar substitute and not aspartame. I could drink it all day long. It does not affect my sugar level. But I've now realized that Coke Zero, you could have Coke Zero once in a while and it does not hurt you. You know, there are some people out there that won't even allow it a tiny little speck of aspartame in their system, NutraSweet or Equal. But trust me when I tell you, you can have a Coke Zero once in a while and it will do nothing. You'll be okay. Seriously. But, you know, like I said, follow the channels that test their glucose level. There's a young lady. Oh my God. You know, maybe I might be able to pull up her channel name right now because she's on my recommended list. Here, there's a woman on YouTube. It's Married to Keto, MARY''D. She's a, cute girl, and she's young, and she tests everything, and she's very down to earth. She's no professional. She doesn't claim to be one, but very down to earth with her tests. She samples everything. Keto Connect is another one. It's a couple, I think a husband and wife, and they are very easygoing and down to earth. Those would be the 3 channels that you should start off with, and I think that you'll be in good hands. So, and before you ask, because I know people have asked too, would I ever start my own keto section on this channel? Maybe. I mean, I was thinking about testing things and doing my sugar things, just strictly testing. Like I'll test my sugar level and ketone level, eat something, drink something, test it again. But remember, my results may not be yours. Derek Hammonds, who was my favorite wrestler when I was a kid, and thank you for the kind words. When I was a kid, very, very early on, believe it or not, snooker was number 1 for me. Backlund, I enjoyed very much, even though he couldn't cut a promo for crap. I met Backlund a few times. Morocco, quickly in '83, Morocco became my favorite. Terry Funk, I didn't have as much of an exposure on the Northeast until he came to the WWF in the 80s. Once Terry Funk came in, Terry Funk took over. To this day, Terry Funk is my all-time favorite wrestler. Terry Funk, Mick Foley, Magnificent Morocco, Jimmy Snuka. Those are 4 right off the top of my head. I know about Snuka and the controversy. I'm just telling you as a wrestling fan. But Terry Funk, as far as, my entire wrestling life, as far as a fan, Terry Funk has always been my number one. And I still cherish some of the autographed items. Like I say, I've sold almost all of my memorabilia. When I bought my Black Lincoln almost 20 years ago, I had a crazy autograph collection. Pop culture, wrestling, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff I had. And I also had a crazy baseball jersey collection. And I sold it all to get my Black Lincoln, which I still have to this day. And I'm a little pissed because I drove it Friday and the front caliper was sticking and there was smoke coming out. And I'm like, damn. I hardly driven that car at all. And now that's the problem when you don't drive an old car that often. Things start to stick. So now I got to get my calipers worked on. But, Terry Funk, when I got engaged in 1998, he sent me a 2-page letter talking about marriage and other stuff, and I still have it. Never ever get rid of it. I'd rather throw it out or shred it than get rid of it. It was just a wonderful thing to have. Puffy89, what's up, Puff? If I could manage or be a mouthpiece for one male and one female on any current roster, who would I choose? As far as females, I'd probably... See, the thing is, we don't have like a real Italian gimmick, in wrestling right now. I mean, I know there's some, but nowhere near what it used to be. That's why I always, prop some of the wrestlers up and coming, that are doing like a little bit of a New York gimmick or Italian gimmick. But as far as men go, believe it or not, I actually think Lars would be a great, but then again, Lars is a pretty damn good, he could speak on the mic. And look, I put all the controversy and this stuff aside, but I think I could close my eyes and picture like Paul Heyman managing him, like somebody, he's very old school. On the women's side, it's rough, man, because some women, cut decent promos. I think, I don't know necessarily for me, but I think Abaddon could use a nice manager. And, I think people need to start to understand that a female wrestler can have a male manager. For some reason, you almost feel like too many people have female managers assigned to females, not as much as males as before. And I don't think a manager should be based on someone's sex. I didn't have any problem with Zelina Vega, managing the crew that she did. It fit, so that's probably who I would go with. George Ford, 1980s wrestling forgotten by WWE. Why? I wouldn't say it was forgotten, but the problem is, and look, I was a fan of wrestling in the 80s. Some of the good matches, even on pay-per-views at that time, were rather boring. When drop kicks were big moves and headlocks and, takedowns and sitting on the mat for 2 minutes, the wrestling fans of today are used to, a lot of flippy and, counter and, double counter and, a lot of action. Doesn't mean that 80s wrestling didn't have action. It had a lot of it. But when you watch a lot of old school wrestling, at times it could be very, very boring. And the thing is that, 80s wrestling, for a lot of people, is boring. And that's just the way it is. So I don't think WWE intentionally tries to shy away from 80s wrestling. It's just a different era. I guess you could consider it like when the WWF was around in the 90s. They didn't talk about the 70s all that much, and even in the 80s, they didn't talk about the 60s all that much. You go back, and anybody that goes back that far with me will agree with me on that. Some promotions, some brands do. NXT seems to be trying to go a little bit more retro because they got the 50 and over demographic as their number one. And they try to mix a little bit of, younger and comedy and things here that just try to keep, hopefully the younger audience to find something that they can click with. But overall, it's just a different era. It's a different era. And that's why they don't bring it up. They always go back to the Attitude Era because look at the ratings. Look at the amount of money that was made. Look at the... and I've said this before, this is WWE's way. When they bring up the Attitude Era on the network, it's WWE's way of doing over the top without doing over the top in 2020. Oh, we'll just talk about attitude and oh my God, look at that stuff. Well, that's not today. We're just talking about what happened 20 years ago. So it's their way of doing more, violent or slutty or, sexy, adult entertainment. That's how they sneak it in today without having to do it. Because if they did any of their attitude stuff today, they get ripped on. So they'll always go back to the Attitude Era to celebrate it because that's their way of having that content relevant today, even though they're not doing it today. So, it's tricks. It's tricks, but it's smart business. So look, when you realize 10 million plus tuning into wrestling, yes, it's a different era. And yes, you didn't have Hulu and YouTube and other areas where you could watch wrestling every week. But fact of the matter is, wrestling viewers every week is just a fraction of what it used to be. Remember the WWF Pro, over 50 million viewers worldwide. That was exaggerated a little bit, but, it's nowhere near what it used to be. So, JP Sweeney, he's been with this wonderful girl for 10 years. He's 34, she's 27. They have 2 beautiful kids together, and they live together. Just wanted to know any advice for his future. And he's from Dublin, Ireland, by the way. And I'm going to put this temperature up a little bit because it's getting a little too cold. I don't want to get sick. Too hot, too cold, too hot, too cold. All right. My answer to you is I don't mind giving personal advice, but fact of the matter is I don't know anything about your situation. I don't know how old your kids are. As far as advice for the future, the only thing I could say in a generalistic way is always put yourself and your family before anyone else, and those are the people that you need to focus on. Authenticity, being honest is always important. But, I don't know what your work situation is. You've been, now it sounds like you're not married. So I don't know why you're not married. I don't know if there's any circumstances behind it, but look, if you're living together for 10 years and you got 2 wonderful kids and, you're saying this in a positive way, keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. You get a formula and, if it's an honest formula, that's why, like I say, I always bring up social media as the example. I love all these people that go online. Oh, my father taught me never to do this. And then they do it. My father has always taught me. And people have yet to say that, I'm full of it. But my father always taught me when I was young, don't waste your time lying. Because when you lie, then you got to lie on top of lie, on top of lie, on top of lie. And sooner or later you get caught. And have I lied over the years? Absolutely. But, as far as trying to create a persona, saying that you have a girlfriend when you don't, or you have a boyfriend when you don't, when you say, pray for me, I have, all these health tests coming up when you don't. And after a while, you start to realize that the person is posting all this just to get attention. And the only attention that should matter the most for you is the people that were in your house. Because like I said, having likes on social media don't pay the bills. And when you depend on social media, that gratification of getting likes and attention, it wears off. And when it wears off, and now you only get 10 likes or 5 likes or this and that, there's a formula online too. When someone constantly is looking for attention, when they start getting to the point where everything they post gets very little viewers, then all of a sudden, here comes the woe is me, or, sad news, or, some tragedy that don't exist. And that's all to get the attention back on them. Like, hey, everybody, you remember me? So don't fall into that trap. Pay attention to the people that you could physically touch. Nothing wrong with having friends online, but always focus on the people you could actually touch with your hands. I don't mean touch them inappropriately, but for me, my world is my fiance, my bird, my parents, my friends, some of my relatives, and that's it. I have friends online, but, it's a different type of friendship. And I try to keep a balance. I'd rather have a very boring social media footprint, but have a wonderful relationship with my fiance, or a wonderful relationship with my parents. And the world does not need to know every little thing, that happens with me and my parents to show how great a relationship. When you focus on the people you could touch. Brandon LaChance, shout out to you, my friend. So in the WWE, now there isn't anyone like your Rock, Steve Austin, in the sense that they're going to hold everyone accountable for what they do, not only in the ring, but backstage as well. Why do you think this is? Do you think that there's no one in the locker room that really wants that kind of responsibility? Well, the problem is, number one, we're in a different era. We're in a totally different era. I'm not saying that Austin or The Rock did steroids or anything like that, but even your quintessential wrestler is not the same mold of what it was 20, 30 years ago. Now, larger-than-life stars could be more of, the goodness about them, not how big their biceps are. So when you look at wrestling today, your caliber, your template of a wrestler is totally different. Plus, social media wasn't 20 years ago what it is now. Everything is under a microscope. Cancel culture. WWE is a perfect example of a promotion that has to always watch every little thing they say, every little thing they do, because misery loves company, and everybody, not everybody, but a large portion of people on social media have to be part of a group, have to be in on the conversation. And, you could run into problems even if there's nothing there, like the Velveteen Dream stuff. Triple H says they did an investigation and, they didn't find anything. Like I said before, I don't work in WWE's offices, but I guarantee you $1 billion company, multi-billion-dollar company is not going to have their investigation is, hey, Lisa, call Mike in Human Resources. I got an investigation I need them to do. They probably went to outside sources. They're a publicly traded company. Of course, the casual wrestling fan doesn't look at every little aspect as to why they're not going to lie or manipulate it. That's why things keep getting thrown out of court with WWE, because people base things more on emotion than here. And, with wrestling today, you're on eggshells. Plus, the revenue isn't what it used to be. The attendances aren't what it used to be. The merchandise sales aren't what it used to be, COVID or no COVID. So you have to rely on the group. And I actually said this about 10 years ago, and John Cena said something similar not too long ago, that we're in an era now where you're not going to look back at a Rock or an Austin or a Hogan, Savage, Bruno. It's going to be like a group thing. Yes, you will have standout stars. Roman Reigns is a standout star. AJ Styles has been, a standout star even in TNA. But even John Cena said recently that he doesn't think WWE has to be about any one star. Like there's been no Cena since. Roman Reigns has probably become the closest. That's why you got the WWE's always going to be careful how they use this Roman Reigns heel turn thing. Yes, on TV he may be vicious, and with the I Quit match coming up too, but you'll see him smiling doing interviews still. They're always going to keep that separate reality, available and prevalent. So everything's under a microscope these days. And that's the reason why. And as far as locker rooms and leaders, people don't do what they used to do. People play games all day long and they'll listen on the headphones all day long. And it's not, where it used to be. Now, there's some people, I think, that are locker room leaders now. But at the same time, though, everybody, wants to be treated on an equal playing field, and someone overseeing everyone else, not everybody is going to be receptive to that. So it is what it is. James Smith, he also watched wrestling with his grandmother. And I said that I watched it with my nana. What was the first moment watching with my nana that made me love wrestling? Well, I've told this story before. First time I ever saw wrestling, I wasn't even 10 years old yet. I was very young. And my grandmother used to babysit me and my brother. And she lived in Ridgewood, Queens, God rest her soul. And my mom and dad, when they would have, I look back now and I realize like they had their own private time. And what would happen is they would, go out to dinner, spend time with friends or whatever. My God, as I'm going through this, there's so many questions left. I'm going to have to start flying through these. But so my grandmother sometimes would babysit us at our house. That my grandmother would come over and she would stay overnight and, we would be home, or we would go over to my grandmother's house. And one time I went over to my grandmother's house and me and my brother was sleeping in the other room. And it was right around midnight, and I heard this loud noise coming out of my grandmother's TV. I couldn't go back to sleep. I walked over to her bed, and I said, Nanny, what are you watching? And she was watching wrestling. And I just sat by the bed, and I saw all this stuff, and, I had no idea what it was. And I thought it was pretty cool. And when I came home the next day, I remember saying something to my mom about, we watched wrestling last night, and my mother was like, why are you letting them watch that? They're so young and this and that. And you remember, this is 1979. So once my mother said that we're not supposed to watch it, that's when I wanted to watch it. So my mom, for about 2 to 3 years, really didn't let me watch it all that much. But when 1982 came around and Snuka came into the WWF and was feuding with Backlund, and my mom was letting us watch it a little bit more, and then I started going to the Ridgewood Grove Arena with my uncle, God rest his soul, who worked for the WWF, and my grandmother. That's when I got hooked. Snuka was the first person that got me hooked as far as wrestling goes, and he was a heel still at the time, but I was hooked. So that's my earliest moment of really being hooked. Once my mom knew, and it was funny because she knew that we weren't going to mimic what we saw. And the funny thing is the following year is when I was in Juniper Park, and me and my friends were playing on the swings, and they had a sliding pond. And I climbed up to the sliding pond, and my friend was laying on the floor, and there was a rubber mat, and I did the I love you thing, and I jumped off to do the Superfly splash, and he moved out of the way, and I broke my arm. And I broke my ankle. Two different incidents. And, I ended up mimicking the moves after all, but that's my earliest memory as far as really being hooked on wrestling. Thank you, Kevon Lewis, for the kind words. He knows I covered this last year or early this year, but do I think David Benoit will end up wrestling in AEW? Look, the Benoit tragedy, is always going to hover over his name. And you don't want to take the actions of Chris Benoit and take it out on his son. The problem is, especially with WWE, the minute he comes into that company, everybody that doesn't know about the Benoit tragedy is going to look into it and then be reminded. Unfortunately, WWE cannot erase history. What happened, happened. There's no way around it. I mean, I look at Tamina. Tamina is the daughter of Jimmy Snuka. Jimmy Snuka was convicted of years later, killing Nancy Argentino, whether intentionally or not. And Tamina is still around. So I don't want to say that David Benoit would be absolutely a no-no for WWE, but I definitely can see David Benoit showing up on AEW Dark, seeing what kind of reaction he got, but also still, he's got to get better in the ring. David Benoit is not bad, but he's nowhere ready yet. So once David Benoit gets a little more seasoning, a little more experience, I wouldn't be surprised if David Benoit is on AEW Dark before the end of 2021. I mean, the dark match, let him show up and, see what happens. Look, we have Brian Pillman Jr. I mean, obviously he didn't kill anybody, but, Brian Pillman Jr. gets an opportunity, and the guy is a talented star. I don't know if that David Benoit will ever get to that level, but, anything is possible. So you give them an opportunity and see what happens. So, yeah, I could see it, but I think you start with AEW Dark, see what kind of ability he has, see what kind of feedback he has, but I don't think he should be penalized because of what his father did. It's unfair, totally unfair. Shout out to Guardian of Chaos. What's up, my brother? I'll talk about Tony Capone in a moment. Philip Maffey, do I think Molina will return to the WWE someday? Yeah, it's happening. It's absolutely happening. Problem is, she is past her prime, even though she could still go. I honestly think she would be utilized similar to how to utilizing Mickie James. I could see her returning and maybe getting an early win or two, but her getting like another run, just on WWE's history, I find it hard to believe that they would do that. She's definitely deserving. She could still go. She is still excellent. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing her little reunion. Eminem, but not, Mercury. But I'm talking about Morrison and Miz. Have Morrison and Miz with Molina. Eminem. You wouldn't call it Eminem, but Miz and Morrison with Molina. I like it. And that opens up opportunities because you can have, like a couple on the other side and have a little feud. And now you could have a mixed tag match here and there. So, no, Molina will definitely be back. Honestly, I don't even, especially since, Morrison is now married. It's not, yeah, she'll be back. She'll be back. I don't think there's any issue. It's just a matter of when. Joey Dollars, what do I feel about Northeast independent wrestling stars such as Homicide and Lowlife Louie getting a shot at the TNT title? Look, I should have had the pictures available, but Lowlife Louie is obviously close to my heart. Wonderful man. Had the privilege of being in his wedding party. The guy's a special guy. I don't know if Lowlife Louie would ever get an opportunity to fight for the TNT title. I always wanted to see like the Dirty Rotten Scoundrels or Christopher Street Connection in TNA. I thought that they actually, when we saw the SATs go to TNA, that was awesome. But I have said before many times, Homicide versus Cody should happen. Should happen. No reason why it can't happen. Homicide is a fucking legend. And Homicide is awesome. Yes, he's at the tail end of his career. But Homicide versus Cody, easy. Easy. So do I think that can happen? Absolutely. Would I love to see Lowlife Louie get a shot? I'd pay to see that, but I don't know if it'll happen. Brandon LaChance, what's the greatest match of all time? Who's the greatest wrestler of all time? Who's on my Mount Rushmore of all time? What do I consider being the greatest rivalry of all time? That's a lot to digest. I don't like using old school and new school because it's two totally different styles, two totally different, eras. How, as I said before about the lengths of feuds, I think Hogan Andre is one of the most important matches of all time. WrestleMania 1 was obviously very important for the future of WWF, but, the main event was more of an attraction than anything else. The buildup of Hogan Andre was big deal. So for me, even though the match quality might be, it's not what other matches are, Hogan Andre was probably the most important. And I just loved the build and, just being a fan of Andre's for so long. So that's what I always go to. Greatest wrestler of all time. And he says Mike Skills, wrestling, etc. Wow. You could say Shawn Michaels was special with Mike Skills. Bret Hart, when he turned heel, his Mike Skills were outstanding. Hogan was awesome, but Hogan didn't need to have, technical wrestling. When he went to Japan, you could see Hogan go, but in the States, he didn't need to. And that extended his career. So, Ric Flair, some people will argue Ric Flair always had the same match, but Ric Flair can make a stuffed animal look great in the ring. So if push came to shove, as far as my viewing as a wrestling fan, Bruno came before my time. I saw Bruno at the tail end of his career, and I watched retro stuff that he did in the 70s before I became a fan. But I would probably say Shawn Michaels, as far as the overall, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, very close. I mean, sure, Ric Flair had the more storied career, but, there's no clear-cut answer. But those are two names that come to mind. My Mount Rushmore of all time, there's no way to really answer that. I think the only way you can answer that, and, because people, you could bring up, Carl Gotch if you want. I mean, you could bring up, so how do you come up with a Mount Rushmore? If you want to talk about a Mount Rushmore in my lifetime, I would choose someone from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and today. Even though 2000 to 2020 is 20 years, so it's really hard to bulk the 20 years together. But if you want to do that, I would go, if you want to do 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, I probably would have to go with Bruno, Hogan, Michaels, and whoever you want for today. AJ Styles? I mean, some people might say, Cena. Some people may say CM Punk. So it's really, really hard. It's really hard. When I do Mount Rushmores, I like to do specifics. Like if you say to me 70s or 80s or ECW, it's very hard to take all different styles and eras and try to narrow it down to 4. Greatest rivalry of all time? I don't know. In my lifetime, Bret Shawn probably was the most realistic because there was a lot of reality involved. But there were some awesome ones in my lifetime as a wrestling fan. Flair, Funk Foley, Backlund Graham, Michaels, Hart. This tremendous. Rock, Triple H. It's just too many. Pit Viper. There's rumors of WWE coming up with a new show, NXT Underground, to go against AEW's new show when it's announced. Do I think WWE is going to do it with shows? I don't know if that's the case. NXT Underground, I don't know where you heard that. I think WWE's got enough shows as it is. I don't know. I mean, if AEW has another show, especially if it ends up like on a Saturday night or something like that, I don't think it's really, WWE needs to compete with that. Just because someone comes out of a show doesn't mean that WWE has to counter with their own show. You know, focus. It's not, and again, I've said this even with shows that I do, it's not quantity, it's quality. So I don't, as of right now, I don't see that happening, to be honest with you. Michael Articolo. He knows that most AEW wrestlers are probably tied up under contract for another year or two. But as a fan, if WWE could sign one current AEW wrestler, who would I choose? He would choose MJF because he thinks he has the most upside. I don't know if WWE would let MJF be the prick that he is. You know what I mean? I would love MJF. And I could clear my head and picture him just totally owning people, but I don't know if WWE would let him go as much as AEW has. He ain't gonna let him do any middle fingers or anything like that. So I would say, boy, Hangman Page, absolutely enjoy. Kenny Omega, it's interesting because Kenny Omega, I don't know how he would click with the WWE audience, but then again, you know, I never thought AJ Styles would click like he did. And let's be honest, AJ Styles adapted to WWE. I kind of put Kenny Omega in the same position as AJ Styles. Kenny Omega could end up being the replacement for AJ Styles down the line. So those two come to mind right away. Dayhawk, since I've decided to leave New York in the future, have I started state hunting already? And he recommends Alaska. Too cold. Too cold. And I don't mean Scorpio. Alaska would be too cold. We've thought about Connecticut, thought about Florida. But Florida, you know, the storms, you know, there's always a worry of just one day everything just getting blown to smithereens. Few people have, in my personal life, have told me South Dakota. So, no, look, with COVID, it's impossible to hunt right now. We've pretty much realized that we wrote a year off. I got engaged November of last year. I was supposed to have an engagement party in April. I was supposed to go to Florida and hang out with all you crazy mofos for WrestleMania weekend. And I was hoping to get married in 2021. With COVID, and it's still not being over yet, you know, as far as vaccine and everything else, we pretty much had to put everything aside for a year. Once this virus is under check and we've been vaccinated and it's safer to get out there, then we're going to look. But I want to move somewhere where it's like a quiet town, not city life. What's going on in this country is terrible. You know, I understand the protest and I understand the outrage and I understand about changes in our law enforcement. I agree. Every cop should have a body cam at minimum. You see yesterday on the news, some security guard shot someone dead who tried to pepper spray him. That's a perfect example of what I said recently. I said 20, 30 years ago, me and my friends, one of my friends was a cop. He got his ass kicked in a club. Never once thought about grabbing for his gun. He took his ass kicking, and that was it. It was over a girl. These days, people grab for their gun because they're fearful of their life for the most bullshit reasons. Getting your ass kicked doesn't mean your life is over. Guy got pepper sprayed yesterday and he blew someone away. Pepper spray. Now, if he was pepper sprayed and the guy went to grab his gun, that's different. But you saw the picture that came out. Guy's pepper spraying him and the other guy's like 15 feet away with like this. Too many pussies have been brought up in this world over the last 20 years. We're in a snowflake era. And unfortunately, snowflakes are in the form of all walks of life, all races, all colors, all sexual orientations, cops. You know, it's just, and unfortunately, there isn't going to be any one of us is going to change it. So I have just decided I'm going to just enjoy my life and try to be as happy as possible. And if I have to cut myself off from the rest of the world once my parents are no longer on this earth, so be it. You know, I'm not going to get consumed with all of this negative stuff. No, won't do it. Tom has been watching wrestling since the late 60s till now. What do wrestling companies need to regain that I can't wait to see this match or feud like the 70s, 80s, and 90s used to do? I personally think just not rushing storylines. Now, I don't mean an extent of delaying something like, this year's hard because of COVID. But when you know that you have a storyline building, it's very tempting to do the payoff sooner and then have 2 or 3, 4 rematches on pay-per-view. Some storylines need more time and you need a good build. And, I think of Cena versus Edge. And when you realize how long that feud went on, it was great. They tried to do that with Cena and The Rock. The problem is they announced the WrestleMania match a year in advance. So it was almost like force-fed. It didn't feel like it grew organically. They named the match and then they had friction for a year. You have a feud and it feels like you got something special there. You can't rush it like, we're going to do it on the next pay-per-view, or we're going to just, it's got to grow organically and not rush the payoff. And right now it's a little difficult because of COVID and because things are intentionally delayed or, spread out longer. But you just got to resist temptation to cash in so early. But in this environment where you're trying to get as much money as possible, as much revenue, advertising, merchandise, maybe you don't have that luxury of waiting extra time to cash in. Guardian of Chaos, the NAWA, which is the North American Wrestling Alliance, with the Godfather Tony Capone, is relaunching and is back with a vengeance. Relaunching, running out of Mount Vernon. Do I remember them in the 90s and the mid-2000s? Yes, I remember it very well. Tony Capone, Mario Mancini. From me as a New Yorker, what I remember from it, and I'm not looking at notes, I'm just telling you straight from memory. UWF was trying to be the next big promotion here in the Northeast. And, obviously, with the recent, Dark Side of the Ring controversy, it was okay, but they sensationalized a lot of things and left out so many parts of it. But, from what I remember, the UWF, I think, was on Sports Channel. And when things started to fall apart for the UWF, I would say around 92-ish, NAWA tried to pick up where UWF left off. And Tony Capone, he had some decent names come in. I mean, you had like early 1, 2, 3 Kid, Sean Waltman there. You had Snuka. You had your usuals that would be on the Northeast. But it was interesting because in 92, you had an early Taz make an appearance. You'd have some early ECW stars make an appearance. And, the promotion, I remember seeing it a little bit on Sports Channel, and even Joey Styles. That was the first time I ever saw Joey Styles on commentary. I tweeted about Joey Styles earlier today. I miss him. Too talented to be out of wrestling this long, in my opinion. But we had Greg DeGeorge and Joey Styles on commentary. And it was a fun promotion, but it felt too regionalized. Like, you just didn't feel that it was going to be like a... And me, I didn't care all that much because I was a New Yorker. I'll be honest with you. I went to a lot of indie shows in the early 90s. I honestly cannot recall if any of them was for the NAWA. Some of the cards feel awfully familiar because I could swear I saw Tony Capone versus S.D. Jones once. It's such a blur for me. I really can't remember. But, it just never, it never got the respect it should have in wrestling magazines. And I think the wrestling magazines is probably one of the biggest reasons why NAWA did not go further than they did. Because back in 92, around that time, wrestling magazines is really what we went to. You had some hotlines, but nothing, you didn't even have internet yet. Earliest time of me with internet, I think, was 1993. And back then it was just text chat. But it was a fun little promotion. It had a little TV, but it felt like a New York promotion. And the funny thing is that I think in the late 90s, that's when I really started, learning about other promotions. And then when you got to around 2000, that's when Frank Goodman, USA Pro Wrestling, started really focusing on that. Then I had the privilege of working for him after 2002. So I'm happy that he's returning with it. Man, they had one show in it was Yonkers or Mount Vernon, but they had one show where they drew like over 3,000 people. And the reason why I remember that is because Mass Maniac would bring it up. Because Mass Maniac, when he was doing USA Pro Wrestling, he wanted to draw, as well, those thousands. So, he had a nice thing going. So I'm glad he's back. Good luck to him. Seriously. Let me know if Mario Mancini is going to be involved with him with the new promotion also. So, I definitely have memories. But like I said, when you relied mostly on wrestling magazines at that time, wrestling magazines did not cover it. And they did cover it a little bit, but nowhere near what it used to be. What it should have been, I should say. Sterling, do I have a favorite podcast moment or night from the pre-YouTube days? No. I mean, look, the Benoit podcast will obviously be the one that everybody always talks about, because in real time, I mean, we didn't even know that Benoit had committed murder yet. WWF did the tribute that night, and I've always done a show right after Raw. So we went at the beginning of the night paying tribute to Benoit, and by the end of the night, we were spitting on him because we found out that he committed murder. That is an episode that will always be like huge, as far as to go back on. I honestly have to go back and listen to the old shows. I probably have to censor a few things here and there because, of the time at that time. But, right now I'm in the process of getting a server in my house. And I planned on uploading all of the episodes to my server. Because when you do shows, I've been doing shows online since 2000 and late 03, I would say, 04. Then we did the Minority Report. Then I started doing shows with Kevin Castle, I think in 06 or 07. And when you have thousands of shows in the books, it costs a decent amount of money to have all that in storage and bandwidth available for streaming, downloading, and everything. Everybody thinks that I'm spiteful for taking episodes down. You want to pay me the money? And I know what some people say, well, what about Patreon? I don't know what kind of money people think you make on Patreon, especially when you have like 5-6 people behind the scenes getting. You got Patreon getting it. You got, people, doing like the artwork and other stuff. Then you got myself and Kevin and Mish, and Patreon takes their cut. Then you got the website and the server and the bandwidth and this and that. It's not as easy. And honestly, right now, real life, getting married, taking care of my parents, are top priority. Pulling up years of archives of shows simply so people don't think that I'm trying to erase the history of people I did shows with in the past is some of the most asinine, dumb shit that I've ever heard in my life. I have to do for me and my family and my stuff. And once I get my server and it's set up and I could upload all the shows to my own server, then they'll be available online for everyone. But honestly, no, I treat every show almost like a holiday. You know, it's a privilege to do these for all of you out there. But any shows that stand out? No. Honestly, no. Joe Zerfew. How do I keep my wife, well, she's not my wife yet, from looking at me like a total buffoon for being a wrestling fan? His just does not understand. Plus, it's obvious that he's more into it than his kids. Look, man, this is how I answer it. First of all, my fiance likes wrestling also. So she understands why I do it. You know, I just got to keep a nice balance. But I'll say this to you. There's going to be shows that your wife is going to like more than you. Case in point, my fiance loves Total Bellas, Kardashians, Real Housewives. I can't watch any of that. For me, it's wrestling. So there's going to be other shows that your wife is going to like that you're not, that might fit her mold better than you. Wrestling just happens to be something that we enjoy more than our significant others. You can never convince someone. You can never force someone. You can never, if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. If they can never understand it, my father doesn't understand it. My mother doesn't understand it. My father doesn't understand why, I watch everything I watch. But my grandmother loved it. My mom probably just knows the name Hulk Hogan and that's it. She doesn't know anybody else in wrestling. So it's not out of the ordinary, dude. And if she is not into it or your kids are not into it as much as you, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something that and if you really need to explain, I don't know how long you're a wrestling fan, but if you're a wrestling fan since you were a kid, that's all you have to explain. Look, I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid and I never fell out of love with it. That's probably the best way to answer that. So what school did you go to? Did I ever have a bad day from morning to night? Example, your favorite pants rip in the morning. Day gets worse at dinner time when your least favorite meal was served to the point where you look forward to dessert. I've had a lot of bad days like that. I wake up and I wake up late, or I wake up early in the morning. And that's one of the worst for me. And that happens. I don't go to sleep on a Monday until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I'm supposed to get up at 6:30, maybe 7 if I'm lucky. And instead, I can never fall asleep. So it gets too late in the night where you can't pop an Ambien because it's now 4 o'clock in the morning. You got to get up in 2 hours. So you end up staying up almost the whole night. And then you get to work, and then a customer doesn't show up they're supposed to, or somebody cancels and you got to try to bail them out. And then you come home and you have internet problems, and then you make dinner and it falls on the floor. I swear to God, no BS. Thursday, I ordered food delivery from a place over here. And I was going to have a Caesar salad with grilled chicken, no croutons. And I was going to have mozzarella sticks, and I was going to rip off all the breadcrumbs and just eat the cheese. And I was so looking forward to it. And I woke up Thursday, and I had to get a customer renewed so their policy didn't cancel. The insurance company waited till almost 4 o'clock to tell me that they would renew the person. Then during the day, customers I was trying to get in touch with not answering calls. Few people showed up in my office that were pains in the asses. I got home, and I'm like, I don't have to do a show tonight. I was going to order food delivery. I even ordered something for my fiance since I wasn't going to see her till Friday. So I ordered her something. I put it in the fridge. And I swear on a stack of Bibles, I had a cup in my hand with ketones. It's a drink that you drink that has ketones in it. I had the drink in this hand, and I had in this hand my Caesar salad with grilled chicken. And I also had a dish with the mozzarella sticks. And I walked into my bedroom because I was going to go check emails and eat a little bit from the bedroom. I do that once in a while. And the dish with the mozzarella sticks hit my door. When it hit my door, they fell on the floor. And when I went to catch it, my drink with all the ketones dropped inside my bowl of Caesar salad. I looked at everything, and mozzarella sticks were all over the floor. My drink was inside my Caesar salad, and I had to throw it all away. I didn't even get a chance to even nibble on it. So when you talk about having a bad day from beginning to end, Thursday was the day. Absolutely. Not even close, And, and plus, when, what did I eat instead? Oh, I had provolone cheese, almonds, some pepperoni, and I can't remember what half an avocado. That was my freaking dinner for Thursday night as a consolation. So as soon as I'm done over here, which I should be done in about a half hour at the most, we're probably going to end up ordering that tonight. I will be eating a Caesar salad. I've been wanting to see, and you got to be careful too, because restaurant dressings, creamy ones, sometimes have sugar in it. So I got to be a little bit careful with that. But I have my own dressing. Worst comes to worst. So, in my opinion, for pro sports, NBA, NFL, MLB, soccer, and hockey, which three teams have the worst names? Oh, my God. I mean, there was one, like the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that's what I just can't stand their name. And, the names that they want to change, like they want to get rid of the Washington Redskins. And if you want to even include college basketball, I remember St. John's because I was going to St. John's. They were the St. John's Redmen. And because, everybody talks about the Washington Redskins now, but they changed their name, I think, to Red Storm. So, I don't care about team names all that much. It's just the quality of play. I will tell you, as far as New York teams go, I don't think any real New York teams have any bad names, to be honest with you. And you know what's funny? Something that I consider would be a bad name. Somebody living in an area, I guarantee you Memphis, like, what the hell's wrong with the Grizzlies? And I think that's the name. So, Liam Kelly, was I a fan of The Sopranos, and what's my current favorite non-wrestling show? And thank you, big fan over the last decade. I appreciate it. Thank you for the loyalty, too. I never liked The Sopranos. Never liked The Sopranos. I tried sometimes to get into it. I understand why everybody loved The Sopranos, but, being Italian, being from Howard Beach, home of John Gotti and everyone else, knowing people that were connected, are connected, knowing people who were cardboard, wannabe gangsters, knowing that culture and seeing it in real life and then seeing The Sopranos, a lot of The Sopranos, in my opinion, was grossly exaggerated. I got to meet a few in person, and I got to find the picture. I had dinner with Big Pussy once, and I talked about it on the show, and it was right around the time, shortly after, where I think he threw his girlfriend out of a moving car or something like that. I never got into Sopranos, and my father is very close friends with two of the actors. I can't remember his name. One had a giant forehead. I have the pictures. They hung out for Christmas last year. My father is good friends with two of them. But I can never get into it. Some of the characters were cool, and just when I would start getting into it, they would be way too over the top. Like some of the stuff that they did, like if they were in my neck of the woods and they did that stuff, they get their ass kicked because they just grossly exaggerate it. I'll give you, this is not even a good example, but people will understand what I mean. New Jack City, one of my favorite movies of all time. Love that movie. And if you watch that movie and you see the Italian gangster guys that are feuding with Nino Brown and stuff like that, especially the guy with the ponytail, trust me when I tell you, I used to go to Butterfingers and clubs and be right around the real gangsters of cardboard and everything else. And I got to meet Gotti and others. Members of his family went to my wedding in 99. But the point is if those characters did what they did in my neighborhood, they would have a shovel across the head. And it was just grossly exaggerated. Now, in New Jack City, they were stereotyped as being, over like that. But in Sopranos, there were too many parts of it that were just unrealistic. So I just was never a big fan of it. There was a couple of characters that I liked, but the overall show, I could never get into it, to be honest with you. As far as non-wrestling show right now, I'm mostly into like a lot of like forensic stuff. I was into the new Forensic Files for a little while. I just, what it is? When you do a show late Monday and Wednesday, there's wrestling there. Friday, there's wrestling there. So that leaves Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday I try to spend quality time with the future misses. That leaves Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday I do Patreon show. So it really just leaves Thursday. And what's there to watch? So I watch a lot of like old school stuff, to be honest with you. And I don't watch news. I try to stay away from news as much as possible. I am just not feeling it, man. Willie G, was it a good period or a bad period for the Road Warriors when they were led by Sonny and wore those hockey goalie masks? WWE wanted to add a little bit of sexy to the Road Warriors. They tried to make it, hip, current, and get a little bit of eye candy to focus on them. LOD 2000, I think it's pretty much what you're talking about. They tried to bring them up to date. Problem is, some characters don't ever need to be brought up to date. Even Hogan. Yes, Hollywood Hogan was fun and everything, but if red and yellow was fine. Some characters never needed to be updated. A refresher is always good, but WWF wanted to make like a hip, current version of the Road Warriors. They didn't need to do that. So, even when they changed the music a little bit, they added like extra instruments to it. And I was like, man, just leave. Look at Shawn Michaels, man. Shawn Michaels still has the same theme song after Sherry, when Sherry sung it. I mean, they know some people that need to be, changed around. LOD, though, maybe they did that to hide the fact that Hawk wasn't what he used to be. Animal seemed like he could still go, but Hawk was a little bit of an issue. So I can't explain it as to why they did what they did. I'll tell you the truth. I don't know if Pritchard was around at that time, but I know he answers a lot of questions. Maybe if he was involved with it at the time, you should ask him about that. He'd probably be the person to go to. Benjamin, do I think Triple H will ever get to spit the water again? Yeah. Triple H, I think, will still have a match in him. Don't know where. I'm a little surprised he hasn't done more match here and there in NXT. But I think Triple H still can go a little bit. Yes, he's older now. I'm not saying that he should be the focal point of any major storyline. But yeah, no, Triple H, you will see it again. Shout out to Jeffrey Lenoir. Joseph Acevedo, should WWE have an all-female NXT show? No. I mean, I could see them doing an all-women's wrestling show, period. But, I said this about 3 years ago, and I still stick to what I said. I think the reason why WWE never did an all-women's wrestling TV show was fear of low rating. I said from the get-go that Evolution was going to have a good buy rate and they were going to sell out tickets. I was laughed at by a lot of podcasters out there, you will remember, and I stuck with it, and I ended up being right. But as far as women's wrestling on TV, WWE obviously forced the narrative, the women's revolution and everything else, and I have no problem with women wrestling on TV. If they're talented, I don't care if they're male or female, I'll enjoy it. But when you push a narrative simply because someone is female, that could backfire. And sometimes women's wrestling on NXT, when I do the quarter-hour ratings, you will see repeatedly that they are some of the lowest ratings in the night. WWE strategically likes to put women's wrestling as an opener for NXT because the first quarter hour is usually a hot quarter to get a nice rating. Sometimes they'll close out NXT because the final quarter seems to pop a nice rating. It's strategic. So you do an all-women's wrestling show, I truly believe that if they would have done it and it would have came back at a tremendously low rating, that would have visibly showed everyone that maybe women's wrestling in WWE, I'm just talking WWE, is maybe not as popular. And it's not because they're women. It's just because of the talent and how they used and the overall product. You can't force a product that is more directed towards men and force it on women. I'm not saying that wrestling is, but like I say, when you look at these reality shows like Total Bellas and others, those are geared more for women, let's be honest. You try forcing something like that to try to get a male audience to it, you might turn off a lot of your female viewers because of it. So that can happen in wrestling as well. So I truthfully believe that WWE never did it in fear of getting a lot. By not having that done, they never have to explain the tremendously low rating. So that's just my opinion. So Willie G, somewhat relating to the giveaways that I do with autographs, is autograph collecting still a big deal as it was in the past? Is there one or two wrestlers that would never sign? Well, I'll answer it like this. Autographs are a lot easier to get now than before. I remember the days of a Ric Flair autograph being hundreds of dollars. Now you could get one with a good certificate of authenticity for $50. Undertaker, I remember 300 plus, not too long ago. I don't want to say a couple of years, but now, the right connections, you can get a good Undertaker autograph for $100. The Topps autograph cards, some of them are worth almost nothing. Some of them are worth. I have an AJ Lee autograph card that's worth like $500. I have Paige's rookie card autograph that's worth like $400. Then you can have an autograph like I have Jim the Anvil Neidhart autograph Topps cards. I went on eBay. I mean, I know he's no longer with you, but I went on eBay just to see what they were going for, like $10. So autographs are a lot more available now than even 10 years ago, so the value has gone down. There are a few exceptions, but as far as wrestlers not wanting to sign, the best way I could answer that is heels back in the day did not sign for most of the time. They did not interact with fans. They would be heels, from beginning to end of the night. They would show up at the building. Very rare would you get someone that would stop and sign and this and that. Obviously it's changed now, so you get autographs from almost anyone. Some wrestlers are not as open, to signing. When they're in their private time, which I respect, you're with your family. It's very, very rough, man, because you just want to feel just like an everyday person that people don't notice who you are and this and that. And before you even get any downtime, here's someone asking you for this. I don't think everybody always looks for an autograph so they could sell it on eBay. I remember CM Punk was like that a lot, and I'm not saying, I'm just saying like back in the day, heel wrestlers just would not sign. I remember that often. I remember going to shows and standing in the back, with very few people because not everybody was allowed to. And you'd have the heel wrestlers come in. Could you sign my book? Could you sign this? You sign that? And they would just, like, sorry, kid. And they just keep walking. So I know deep down inside, they probably would have loved to, but they just took their characters more seriously back then. And a heel wanted the fans to get angry at them. And if that meant not signing stuff, that's what they would do. And I agree with it. Devin, shout out to you. You're very welcome, my friend. Shows give him a real mental release, and that's part of the reason why I'm here. Do I think if WWE pushed Cody, would AEW even exist? I I think that's interesting. Look, I think Cody got pushed in WWE. Maybe not to the level that he thought he should have been, because obviously they never let Cody go this far as what he could do in the ring. I think AEW would have still formed if Cody never left WWE. I think the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, there's enough people involved, Jericho and others, that I think it would still have formed. I don't think, when somebody says if it wasn't for Cody, it'd be no AEW. I think that's true in the sense that Cody has done so much for AEW over the last couple of years that I don't know who would have been able to handle that much of a workload. And Brandy does a lot too, whether you like it or not. So I think AEW still would have existed, but in a much different way. So that's how I look at it. Elijah, what wrestlers in AEW do I see as main event stars that could lead the company on a long-term success? Look, Guevara is going to be a big star, and he's on his way. Ricky Starks, I absolutely love. Darby Allin could be. Hangman Page has many, many years to go. Young Bucks. There's wrestlers in WWE right now that will ultimately end up in AEW. AEW's roster in 5 years could look a lot different than it does right now. So, they are very comfortable for the next 2 years with a lot of the players that they have. I don't know if Jericho wrestles more than 2 years from now or 3 years from now. Possibly. I don't know what type of contracts. I know they're all there and they want to see AEW succeed. Sooner or later, business is business. And I think there's going to be a point where AEW may not be able to afford some of their bigger, stars. Would AEW spend $10 million on Brock Lesnar? I wouldn't recommend that. So, they're very comfortable for the next 2 years. After that, we got to see, who leaves WWE to go to AEW? Who goes from NWA? Does Thunder Rosa go to? There's so many names, that you would never in a million. There were people that showed up in NWA TNA that I never ever thought would have left WWE and did. So, right now, they're fine. They're fine. Tuxedo Earth, favorite video games of all time. It's funny, I talked about this last week when we talked about the Billy Mitchell fallout, all the negative reaction I got from people out there. But me, I'm old school. I used to love Atari, ColecoVision, Nintendo, but even in the arcades, Miss Pac-Man, Phoenix, Dig Dug, Pole Position, what was it? I almost said Goof. Oh my God, I'm drawing it. Gorf. Gorf was a great one because it seemed like 4 video games in one. But those are the games that I always focused on. I mean, I loved, the PS2 and the PS3 and the baseball games, basketball, but, some of the racing games. I know they're coming out with a new PlayStation. I'm seriously considering and getting it. Just got to find time in the day to play it. So if Triple H didn't get injured in 2001 and got inserted in the Invasion storyline, Team WWF, or on the opposite side, instead of Kurt doing the double cross, do I see Triple H doing that? It's possible. Anything's possible. Would have been a big swerve. But, there's a couple of names that could have, turned at that time. So, yeah, I could see that happening. I don't know how well it would have gone over, but by 2002, it was the Triple H show. I mean, I still remember being on the Jersey Turnpike, dropping off the tape so XPW could be on TV in Philly, and getting a phone call on my cell phone. Fucking Bischoff just gave the world title to Triple H, just handed it to him. That's how I always remember dropping off the tape, getting that phone call on the Turnpike. And we're on speakerphone giving us a recap of WWF that night. Bischoff just gave Triple H the title. So that storyline would have changed very quickly. Bones, would ever consider living somewhere other than New York? I answered that earlier. Right now, it seems like Connecticut might be where. Rick James, which overused move would I ban personally? The super kick or the tope suicida. Probably the tope suicida. Because, look, we've seen some injuries come out of it. And when everybody does it, then nobody does it. It doesn't look like a big-time move anymore. I know it must be fun for the wrestlers. It looks like it's fun for them to do it. That's why they do it. The super kick is a little annoying at times. It should be a finisher. Kick somebody in the face, you should knock them out from it. But I would go with the tope suicida. Which AEW wrestler would be the first to defect to the WWE? Boy, I don't know. I could see, somebody lower on the food chain going over to WWE, maybe feel like they weren't utilized. I'm not saying lower in the food chain like as low as a Pineapple Pete, nothing against him. But look, I think some people like Hangman Page, I don't want to say MJF, but there's a few wrestlers that you feel are homegrown AEW, but I think when their contract is up, if they got a nice offer from WWE, I think they could seriously consider it. At the end of the day, money is money. Opportunity, is also important as well. What specific examples do I have that lessened my tone on being such a staunch Republican? I don't know. I've had views that have not been clear-cut Republican. I just don't let anybody influence how I feel. And I'm not afraid to say how I feel. There's so many people out there, you start asking them serious questions about topics of the world, and they will twist it and generalize it. And you, at the end of what they say, you realize they didn't even answer the question. They're so afraid of getting backlash online. One of the nicest compliments I got the other day, I don't want to say who he is. He knows who he is. And person is black and heard what I said last week as far as, how I am going forward in my life. And I talked about why I'm just so angry with the government, with this country, and with others. I'm not going to hurt it or spite it or anything, but I gave my overall views about a lot of things. And he said to me, he goes, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you said and being honest. And he just agreed on almost everything I said. And that wasn't me as a Republican or an independent or anything talking. That's just me as a person. I've realized that, simply because you view this or the color of your skin or the way you were brought up or this and that you're being prejudged. And it's like, nah, man. I mean, simply because I want to have fun on YouTube and smile and enjoy myself and be a little bit more of a connection with all of you out there, that there's a core group of people out there that are obsessively hating it and very bitter about it. And I'm like, wow, just doing something you enjoy and wanting to do better is frowned upon. And it's just, you realize, and like I said, there's so much fake on social media as well. It doesn't get me mad, but it's more of an amazement to see people as fake as they are on social media. And because there is such a huge class of people out there that are lonely, that are traded in their real life for mostly social media interaction and acknowledgement and likes and feeling wanted, that they won't call out the fake. Instead, they'll embrace it and turn the other way to it. So, it's just, like I said, I just look at the overall, just the aspect of the world. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to just do what makes me happy. And I don't care which side that leans on. I don't even think I'm voting this year. As of right now, I'm not. Which WWE song makes my ears bleed more? Jillian Hall, Brie Bella, or Naomi? Naomi's is okay. Jillian Hall's is purposely annoying. Brie Bella, I never liked her, last run. But I would say probably Jillian Hall, and I think that was that was obviously intentional by WWE. mystery guy, what are the biggest challenges working as an insurance guy right now? Finding a company for my bigger customers. A lot of insurance companies are going under, or a lot of insurance companies are getting out of specific states. You know, all this rioting and all these burnings of buildings, you know, I understand people are angry with law enforcement, with Trump, and with Antifa and all these other things. Trust me when I tell you, people don't realize how much it hurts people. I have an insurance company. I'm not going to mention a name, but they do insurance all across the country. And because of a lot of the buildings that got damaged in New York City, nowhere near where I live, because of all the insurance claims they paid, they're out in New York as of January 1st. I have a bunch of customers that I have to try to find another company for. So when you think that, oh, because it's not happening in my backyard, it's not a big deal, in the end, we all pay. See the Biden tax thing? That concerns me. Because when people say, oh, Biden's tax increase is only for people over $400,000. Okay. All right. There's a pool place in my neighborhood. All he does is clean pools. Opens them up for the summer, closes them for the winter, cleans it. And when you add up the amount of money the guy makes in his business, he gets about $500,000 a year. They raise his taxes 20%. Well, guess what? Everybody who owns a pool, their bill's going to go up 20%. And I know what you're going to say. Well, if you own a pool, you should pay a little more. But say that to the restaurants that up all their entrees another $5. Say it to the company that sells you TVs that now raises their TV price $30, $50. Everybody pays in the end. Everybody pays in the end. So that's my biggest concern right now. Finding new insurance companies for some of my customers. It's not easy as you think. I have a homeowners company that I was trying to get insurance for someone for the last 2 weeks. Got no response. And on Friday, I get an email. Oh, we stopped doing business in New York as of October 1st. Yeah, but I submitted the application to you on September 20th. Well, you know, there's nothing we can do at this point. What can I do? Cass Duville. Do I see the Ultimate Warrior shoot interview? Did I see it back in 2005? No. You're talking about the one with Mike Johnson? I didn't see it. I'm not going to lie to you. Mike Johnson, I think overall, I hope this gets him. I know he's a good guy, you know, but because of him wanting to be involved in wrestling so much, he stabbed a lot of people in the back. Very shady motherfucker. And because of that, I don't like the guy. So when he interviewed Ultimate Warrior, I'm like, oh, good for him. You going to watch it? Are you kidding me? I'll watch Jersey Shore before I watch him interview the Ultimate Warrior. And I've never seen the Rise and Destruction of Ultimate Warrior either because I'm an Ultimate Warrior fan, never left the bandwagon. I remember when it was cool to rip the crap out of this guy. Then he dies and everybody loves him. He goes in the Hall of Fame, everybody loves him. You know, I know there's a core group of people that never did, but, you know. Sterling, who's next? I don't know what you mean. You talking about Goldberg? I think Goldberg may come back for another match or two. Right now, the fallout from his match with Bray Wyatt is still very, very sore to a lot of people. So I say no, not for a little while. Gary Vaughn, we hear a lot about my parents and my friends. I don't talk about my brother all that much. What kind of relationship do we have? We have a good relationship. I love my brother. He loves me. We get along. We don't talk every day. But he's married with kids, and he's got a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure on his shoulders running my father's deli. They never closed because of COVID, and they have an overwhelming amount of expenses trying to keep everything safe and healthy, and thank God nobody in that store has ever caught COVID. But he's just got so much going on right now and trying to keep prices, you know, in check because they have supermarkets to compete with and everything. So it's just with me and my brother, it's more simplified. You know, our relationship we're close. I mean, it's not like we're not close, but he doesn't watch wrestling, even though I will say this, and a lot of you know this already. When I was doing work in wrestling, managing and having a couple of matches, he went to every one of my shows. And when I did the infamous time VPW Wrestling in Long Island. We did a storyline where I had, like a wrestling ring has 4 sides, fans on all 4 sides. We did something in Long Island where I had 6-foot heroes delivered. I had all this catering. I even had a couple of the produce guys in my father's store. I had them come down, and they came out with heroes. They came out with sodas, came out with everything, setting everything up. And the commentators and all the fans are like, and look, the show only drew about maybe 400 people. But they're setting everything up, and everybody in the building thinks that everybody's getting heroes and soda and this and that. And the funny thing about it was, in the summertime, I used to bring Italian ices for everybody. I used to bring like 300-400 Italian ices in buckets, and hoping they wouldn't melt, get to Long Island and just pass them around for everyone for free. So when I turned, I guess, as a heel, what I did was one side of the ring only featured friends of mine, my brother, his wife, his kids, co-workers. They filled up one side. And it's hilarious because we look back on it, and my brother's 2 kids, my 2 nieces, who were maybe 8 at the time, that they were heels. They were heels because what ended up happening was a couple of workers from my father's store were passing around heroes and drinks to only one side of the building. So everybody else is watching this. I don't know who came up with the idea originally. I know I was involved with it, but the idea was that, I was only serving one part of the audience. Everybody else was getting angry, and, it was to get it on me, but they were getting pissed at my brother and his wife and his kids and these workers. And I told them, I'm like, look, just whatever it is, it's just the show. Don't get. And I think my brother's kids, they'll never tell me, but I think they were really scared that day because there were fans on the opposite side yelling at them. I hope you choke on that, you fucking bitch. And, I have it on video. I gotta put it online. I have all this stuff on DVD. I just never put it online because I just, never wanted to come across as like, oh, this guy thinks his shit don't stink. And I have a habit of doing that already on the shows. So, but my brother went to all my shows. Garth, he respects both of their parties, but a lot of people are tired of both Republicans and Democrats. Is it possible in the future that maybe both come together, grow up as adults? Not for a while. This group has to die off. They have to die off. What's going to happen is some people who are too young now to be in government are going to grow up where everybody should be equal. And I think once the new crop once you get involved in politics, that could sway you and change your mind. And, you say you're going to do one thing and you end up doing something else. So I don't think it's going to be for decades. I mean, there'll be moments where everybody comes together and then it quickly goes away. You're going to need someone that truly is not a Republican or a Democrat, that has some great ideas that everybody could relate to, and maybe someone like that could maybe turn it around. I know some of you think it's The Rock or Oprah or someone else. I don't necessarily think so. You see The Rock reading Elizabeth Warren's book, and you think about socialism. And then you hear him going for Biden and Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is the most radical, and let's be honest. You start thinking, I think The Rock is for socialism. And that's not, that far of a reach. And I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, but, you can't just look at someone and simply because you like them or you think they're a good person doesn't mean that their political views are on the same level as yours. That's why I try to stay away from it as much as I can. So, Dream 101, why do people want Randy Orton to become WWE champion again? I think just for a little change of pace. Drew McIntyre has been fine as champion, but it feels a little wasted. And it's a shame. It's not his fault. I think people just want to see a little bit different. They want to feel a little change of pace. And, I'm surprised how many people picked up when I said that Drew is going to be looked back as the COVID champion. I'm not sure if I want Randy as champion, but I'm starting to think Hell in a Cell might be Randy getting the belt. Losing that many pay-per-views in a row to Drew McIntyre, there's a limit. So, David Schneider, rapid fire question: which Mets team since '86 should have won a World Series? '06 or '15, and why? You know what? I don't know. I really enjoyed '06. I enjoyed the 2000 Mets, believe it or not. I enjoyed the '99 Mets, believe it or not. 15, yeah, I mean, you think of that pitching staff, it was phenomenal, but unfortunately, they just, the problem with the 2015 Mets is that they struck out too much. And I remember, didn't I do something on one of my shows that I think I donated money to charity every time Lucas Duda struck out. In fact, if you go on my Twitter, do an advanced Twitter search and type in Duda on my account, the tweet might even still be there about Lucas Duda. I would love to pull it up right now. Maybe I can. I'm curious because I remember doing some. I mean, I've donated to Rain. I've donated to charities, and I try to find like creative ways of doing it or funny ways of doing it. But that might have actually been it. I'll tell you right now. Let's see. I'm typing in Duda. I'm typing in my Twitter name. All right, let's do a search. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right. Yeah, 2015. Okay, charity idea for the Donzilla Army. Every time Lucas Duda strikes out, we donate $10 each to Rain. Who's going to join me? Nobody responded. Then I wrote, Rain is the charity that Mick Foley supports. We'll all donate $10 each every time Lucas Duda strikes out for the rest of the playoffs. And the only response that I got was from Jason A. If the Blue Jays win the championship series, I'll donate $100. Well, they didn't win. But, yeah, nobody responded. Not one person. So I don't remember how much we donated. Well, I donated. I think I donated $100. I don't remember. But nobody took part in it. So nobody thought it was funny, or nobody just didn't give a shit about Lucas Duda, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, I'll go with 2015. I just wish they didn't strike out as much. Tony D, favorite all-time late-night TV talk host? Probably David Letterman. I always enjoyed his humor. It wasn't political back in the day. A lot of, comedy. I mean, he had Andy Kaufman on so many times, and I was just a huge Andy Kaufman fan. But, Johnny Carson's a little bit before my time. Never liked Joan Rivers. And then you got, obviously Conan O'Brien and the ones of today, but probably Letterman I enjoyed. Kevin K., in my detailed opinion, as a local, how do average New Yorkers make ends meet with the cost of living so much higher? I can't explain it. In this neck of the woods, taxes are so high. Just imagine having to pay $7,000, $8,000 in taxes just to own a house. It's the truth. I handle people's taxes, so I see it. I think majority of people have tenants, and the tenant covers a majority of the expenses for taxes. If someone is lucky to have, maybe like a 3-family house, they have 2 tenants. One could take care of the mortgage, one could take care of the tenant. It's not, it's cut and dry. Believe me when I tell you, the neighborhood is getting older. Once you become elderly, your taxes do cut in half, as long as you don't go over a certain income level. So there are a lot of people in the neighborhood whose taxes are half of what they should be. But even with the half, they're still paying $4,000 a year for tax. Then you add homeowners. Then you add car insurance. So a lot of people are getting out of New York. So it is really rough. It's really rough. Or they don't own. I mean, with COVID, and I've said this for 8 months, take note that the one class of people who New York has never offered any breaks to are property owners. You ever hear of a tax break? Ever hear of this kind of, or even businesses? We're going to cut your taxes for a quarter of the year because you couldn't operate? No. Doug Eaton, you call your fans a Donzilla army. Obviously, Godzilla inspired it. His question is, am I a fan of Godzilla? Not really. I was never into the Godzilla movies. Believe it or not, I don't know. I think Mish might have been the one to originally come up with the Donzilla name. But no, I never liked the Godzilla movies. Although Sling TV, which I no longer subscribe to, I have YouTube TV again, but they have a free access. And what I do is I put that on during the day for my bird to watch and hear some, audio, since I'm out of the house for a while working. And they have a channel that plays nothing but Godzilla and Japanese movies during the day. I can't remember the name of the channel right now. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. And I come home and I'm just glued to the TV for a few minutes. And I'm like, Japan is just absolutely wild with their creativity with monsters. And it's just incredible. But no, I've never been a fan really of Godzilla. And we're almost done, everyone. We're only going to be a few more minutes. Got a few more, not too much. That's why we got to do these every 2 weeks instead of 3 from now on. Hey, DT, do you think WWE turned Roman heel because they have a lot of faith in Drew being No. Two totally different brands. Drew McIntyre is very liked, a little bit of a role model, but not that children looking up to role model like I said earlier. Roman will have his moments outside of WWE. And I think they will make certain to show that Roman out of WWE, outside of the Smackdown show, is the same good person that he was before. And social media will make sure to separate the two. Blazing Bolts, thoughts on Jay White being the best wrestler of the world? Thoughts on New Japan overall? New Japan, they got to get more of an American footprint. Obviously, COVID screwed that up for 2020. New Japan has some great stars. Jay White, as far as best in the world, I still go with Adam Cole. Jay White is uber talented and he is awesome in New Japan, as are many other wrestlers as well. But, you can't take a product. Since I live in the United States, you can't take a product where a very small portion of the wrestling fan audience in the United States watches it. When you could get, look, I remember when AJ Styles was in New Japan and the Young Bucks, the Bullet Club was in a different form. I know a lot of people that would watch occasionally a little bit of New Japan to see what those guys are doing. Gallows and Anderson is another one. Finn Balor. So, right now, you don't have as many eyes as you did before. But I think 2021 should be a good year for New Japan. We'll see. But I wouldn't put Jay White as the number one wrestler overall. You want to put him in top 5? Okay, I'm fine with that. But number one, and I don't think Moxley should be number one either. I still think Adam Cole should be number one. You want to put Moxley 2? Okay. Raven Eye, who will have a better wrestling career when it's all said and done, Rhea Ripley or MJF? Wow. Talking about two totally different careers, man. That's hard to say. MJF is in a class by himself because of the prick that he is and, how it extends to real life and people don't know where the line is blurred. Rhea Ripley is not that type of character. Rhea Ripley will carve out a great career. But as far as 10 years from now, honestly, wow, that's no disrespect, but that's not a good comparison. But if you force me to choose one, I'd choose MJF. Orange Cassidy or Isaiah Cassidy? Orange Cassidy obviously is a lot of gimmick, but it's a gimmick that, a lot of fans are into. Isaiah Cassidy, he is on the rise. with his private party. I don't know. As of right now, I don't know how much farther Orange Cassidy goes, but Orange Cassidy obviously has a much bigger fan base right now. When everything is said and done, man, I don't know. Isaiah Cassidy, we got to see. It's way too early in his career to try to predict where he's going to be. I mean, that's like trying to predict what the Hardys were, where they were going to be in 1997, even before they were the New Brood. So, are we on the brink of a civil race war? We've been in a little bit of a race war for a while now. It's just that, unfortunately, too many politicians are letting it brew and simmer. Whether you like Trump or not, and this is not to defend him, but whether you like Trump or not, some states are turning a blind eye to a lot of stuff, and then they blame it on Trump. They just want Trump out of office. And I don't know what's going to happen in the election. But if he's there for 4 more years, that's when the politicians, now the focus is going to be on them to do something about it. You don't justify hate with other hate. And breaking windows and burning things down, I mean, that's like saying, because somebody punched my mother in the face, I could crack him over the head with a baseball bat. You can't justify bad behavior with other bad behavior. And you can't destruct simply because, law enforcement was racist or this and that. Criminal behavior is criminal behavior. There used to be a saying, that when I said that bad behavior does not justify bad behavior, someone goes to jail and gets life in prison. You can't jump over the court table and beat the fuck out of them and not expect to go to jail over it because you're still doing a criminal activity. If crime upsets you that much and police treatment upsets you that much, then to just burn down random buildings because of it, you're not becoming part of the solution. You're using that as an excuse to do whatever you're doing, whether it's destruction, committing crimes. So, unfortunately, there's too many people right now that think that, Trump is responsible for everything. I don't know how much he is or he isn't. He's definitely part of the problem, obviously. But, to see the riots go on and no local government does nothing about it, the residents have to vote those people out of office. Fortunately, we live in a country that has rules. You can't overthrow, you can't burn people or force people or, guilt people out of doing things. And, people are going to get fed up with it. So, Chris, how different do I think the main title scene would have been if there was no issues with COVID? I think Drew may still be champion. I think the crowds would have dictated how long his run would have went. Believe it or not, women's wrestling, I think, would have been similar. Just some storylines would have sped up a little bit quicker. AEW, I think Moxley would still have his reign. I just think there would have been less focus on the champions. I think that would have given opportunities to have others have some bigger feuds. But because of COVID, you try to focus on the people that you have the biggest chance to get you some type of eyes or revenue. So some people have not been utilized as much as they should. Look, you can look at AEW and you can see, without naming names, you can see a few people that before COVID were being used quite a bit. And I'm not talking people that are stuck in Japan right now or in the UK. But even in WWE, before COVID, there was some wrestlers that were utilized a hell of a lot more than they are now. But if WWE feels they're not getting ratings or revenue, they have to focus on who brings it to the table. So I think the undercard would have been used a little bit differently. Chris, who is the single greatest tag team specialist currently active in any company? For example, Cesaro. As far as tag team wrestling goes, Cesaro is not a bad choice, man. It's not. The problem is, you look at the tag teams, you know, you have some put together teams. Jericho and Hager is the most recent one. And I'm starting to think Jericho and Hager is being done as a storyline. So Guevara in the inner circle, Guevara and Santana Ortiz kick them out, maybe start their own Latino faction. I'll talk about that more on Wednesday. But, you know, as far as tag team specialists go, it's kind of hard to come up with any one person. I think Cesaro, you know, is a pretty damn good example. I think of Cesaro Tyson Kidd. Cesaro, when he was in, you know, that faction with Rusev, it was okay. You know, his teaming with Nakamura feels a little bit forced. I don't know. I guess, boy, if you include NXT, then you could think about some other wrestling. Yeah, I'll go with Cesaro. I think Cesaro is a pretty good one. The problem is, like, Matt Hardy hasn't done as much. I would have chosen Matt Hardy because he's great as a tag wrestler. Jeff Hardy, you know, has not been pretty much a tag team wrestler since Matt left, even though he teamed up with Riddle recently. Yeah, you go with Cesaro. I like that. I'll go with that. All right, Dayhack, this is for you.
Ho, ho, ho.
Green Giant.
You got that. Okay. That's a good one. Get through quick. Michael Hull, who's the nicest wrestling personality I've ever met and the biggest jerk I ever met. His nicest is Natty and Kamala, Iron Mike Sharp, Tony Parisi. Jerks with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Tony Atlas, and Angelo Mosca. I met Tony Atlas a few times. Tony Atlas was very, very cool. Very surprised to hear that about Tony Atlas. For me, nicest people I ever met, Terry Funk, Mick Foley, Shane Douglas was mad cool. Vic Grimes was awesome. Pogo the Clown in XPW. I still remember sitting on the hotel beds with him, having long talks. Him, truck driver and things. Vic Grimes also. You know, it's just, you know, those two guys, I always bring it up. Vic Grimes and Pogo the Clown in XPW were two really, really cool guys, man. Just hanging out in the hotel room and seeing these 400-pound monsters, just hanging out in the bed, just chilling, talking about everyday stuff. Tracy Smothers was extremely nice, talking wrestling, insurance, finance. I'm just focusing on the mainstream stars. Chris Candido was awesome. Fucking nice guy. Bam Bam Bigelow. I mean, a lot of people still to this day don't even know the stories when Bam Bam Bigelow wanted me to sell the ECW ring for him and wanted me to auction off all his memorabilia and all the conversations that I had with him outside of wrestling. That guy was a really, really good guy. Man, I could keep going. I mean, put it this way. It'd be a lot easier as far as jerks. Jerks, I'm not going to lie, man. Raven was hilarious. Raven was fucking awesome. Really, really nice guy. I can't come up with any jerks because you know what it is? And I'm not trying to cop out, but you know what it is? Old school wrestlers will tell you this more than anything else. They were brought up, you know, they were taught, you go into the locker room. It doesn't matter if someone is the main event of the card or a dark match on the card or just a local in the neighborhood. Everybody walked up to everyone. Hi, nice to meet you. Anthony, oh, nice to meet you. You know, everybody shook each other's hands, introduced themselves, very respectful. And I saw that etiquette in the locker room. And it was just really wonderful to see. I mean, everybody looked out for each other for the most part. Even Sandman. You know, Sandman gets a rough break sometimes, but I will never forget working Mr. Big Show in 2006 or 7. And there was a lot of young guys on that card. That's the show when Sandman came me in the head. I went to spray hairspray in his face, and it cam wasn't working and I shuck it and turned around and sprayed myself by accident on purpose. But even before that show, and anybody who was on that card will remember this, Mr. Big will remember this too. About an hour before the show even started, Sandman was in a locker room with all of the young guys, and they were all picking his brain, and he was just there, like talking to them and educating them and just being really, really cool to them. So I can't think of any. Matt Hardy was awesome. J.J. Dillon, Jimmy Hart recently, really, really nice. Sabu, a little quiet, but no, I don't think anybody was really ever a jerk. Even when I got the opportunity to be backstage in ECW a little bit, nobody was a jerk. I really, honestly, I mean, as a kid trying to get autographs, as I said earlier, from heels, they didn't want to sign because they were heels. They protected the business, it's much different era. So I understood it. I don't think they were intentionally being spiteful. When I broke my arm and went out to eat after, the Wild Samoans were heels, and they sat at the dinner table with us. So honestly, I can't think of anybody. If there was only one, no, I can't. Even Abdullah the Butcher was pretty friendly when I sort of managed. Well, I didn't manage him one night. I brought him out to beat so he could beat the crap out of Lowlife Louie. But man, I think back at the time, Balls Mahoney was wonderful man. Axel Rotten was awesome. A guy could go down. D'Lo Brown was phenomenal. I can't think of anybody. Honestly, I really can't think of anybody. I feel, you show respect, you get it in return. So I really can't. I can't think of anybody. I honestly can't think of anybody. There's been some people who work behind the scenes that weren't wrestlers who were scumbags. But as far as wrestlers go, I can't complain. Joseph Acevedo, whatever happened in the Blackhearts, also what happened to the Coast and the Minority Report. Joey 924 I haven't heard about in a while. I think he still does Roundtable Wrestling Radio. Black Moses, I haven't heard anything. I hope he's okay. Mad Zombie, there's been rumors that he's been deceased for a little while. I haven't seen him in about 15 years. Brian Damage, I talked to a couple of years ago when Timmy Arson passed. We sent a beautiful flower arrangement from myself to Keith Blackheart and Brian Damage, and it was a black heart for Timmy Arson. It's a beautiful flower arrangement. I have it somewhere, a picture of it. Timmy Arson, for those that don't know, ECW Zombie is probably where you knew him from. He was the first person on the WWE ECW show. He was a hotline host with me for a few years, and he passed, obviously. That's Dave the Genetic Freak I never heard of from back then. So those are the names that come to mind. James Smith, have I ever been to Baltimore? No, just when I drove to Florida once, we passed through Baltimore. Believe it or not, I talked about Baltimore, I think, on Friday. My opinion of it, there's some areas of it that are beautiful, and there's some areas is just, if anybody has no idea, I told the story Friday about my father trying to get crab cakes right near where Baltimore Orioles play, and he went through this neighborhood that the cops pulled over my father and gave him a police escort because my father didn't realize the neighborhood he was in. There is a neighborhood in Baltimore that is like beyond like Escape from New York. So there's some areas that are beautiful and there's some areas that are just dangerous, beyond dangerous. So King Bling Blah, how does he get his family to accept he's a pro wrestling fan? They say it's for low intelligent people in the wrestling business trying to dupe viewers into believing they're for real. He brings up movies and how they respond with everyone knows it's a movie and it's not real, but they don't say the wrestling show is just the show. Any counter advice? Well, like I said earlier to that other gentleman with his wife and his kids, I mean, look, if they don't watch wrestling, they don't understand that social media, WWE does enough and AEW does enough to tell that it's a show. We've had controversies. Jack Jack Swagger. Remember that time? And his manager coming out, Zeb Coulter, coming out and giving their real names, saying they're just characters on TV, that whole Glenn Beck fiasco. Wrestling does reveal a lot that they're just the show. So your family members don't follow wrestling enough to see that aspect of it. My opinion would be the same as I said earlier. You're not going to be able to change their mind. It's a form of entertainment. It's a form of entertainment that has athleticism in it. And, you know, like I said, my mom and my dad, you know, I watch wrestling and my father walks in the room, where's that crap? Fake crap. My uncle did it for me when I was a kid. I told that story about Uncle Joe, God rest his soul. There's nothing you could do that's going to change their view on it. They don't like it. So what I would just do is enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, you know, don't enjoy it in front of them because they'll never understand why you enjoy it so much. When I podcast and do all this stuff, I don't talk about it much with my family, really, because my mom would be like, why you waste all your time doing this stuff and everything, you know? So there's really nothing you could do about it. That's really all I could say. I mean, but they don't follow it enough to understand that we're told it's a show. But you can't prove it to them. You can't explain it to them because it's not going to change their views on it. After last night's entertainment slaughter of a debate, Dayhawk posted this right after the debate. In my opinion, did the debate help Trump or Biden or none of them? I don't think it helped either one of them. Yeah, I'll tell you this. I stay away from politics now, but when I hear these polls about Biden being up 13 points, 15 points, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Because I think deep down inside, people realize that there is a good chance that Trump may not last 4 more years because of age and health. Biden may not last 4 more years because of age and health. And the vice presidential debate was watched by 50 million people, I believe, which was the most in history. And the reason why I think so many people watched it is because more people in this country than anything else know that this next term might be the first one in a very long time where a vice president has to be president. So it comes down to is who do you want president more, Kamala Harris or Mike Pence? And I know neither one are enamored. You know, people aren't happy with either one, but Kamala Harris does not hide about her socialist views. Mike Pence does not hide about his views. So you have to look at it and see whether you like them or not, which one is more in line with your views. So I don't believe the polls, by the way. As much as Trump, you know, sucks in a lot of people's views, before COVID hit, the economy was doing pretty good. And I think people deep down inside, I hope, you know, look, the night of the election, you know, they do these additional surveys. I hope somebody says, did you vote for your choice of president because the vice president may have to take over within the next 4 years? I think that is going to be the decider in this election, in my opinion. Tyler wants me to ask Mish to get rid of the terrible fiend lighting. That is the red lighting that Mish does. Honestly, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but if that is what makes Mish happy and enjoy doing the video with me, I don't care if the light is green. You know what I mean? It's a different look. It's fun. You know, if you don't like the aesthetics of it, you know, you can enjoy your audio only or just focus on me. But, you know, it's different. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people actually like the red light. I love the flag thing. I thought that was a computer graphic in the background. He has a flag behind him, and he has a table fan going. And the air blowing from the table makes the flag, like, move. It looks beautiful. I was impressed. 3 more questions. We're out. Michael Gonzalez. Do I think Cena could have been as successful, if not more than Hogan, if you put him in Hogan's spot in the 80s and vice versa? No. Hogan was like a superhero. 24-inch pythons, 302 pounds, Venice Beach, California, real American, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, be a real American, superhero. John Cena, role model. Hogan, superhero. Yes, Hogan was a role model for some as well. Big difference between a role model and a superhero. My dad was my role model and a superhero. There were a lot of wrestlers who were role models. Great guys, gave advice. Don't do drugs. Say no to drugs. Don't drink. Don't do this. Don't do that. Doesn't mean they would have been on the level of Hogan. So no, I don't think Cena would have been anywhere near. I don't even think Cena would have been accepted wearing jeans and sneakers. So what, you know what I mean? I don't think you could put Cena in the 80s, to be honest with you. Pit Viper, do I think women's wrestling is a draw like some people think? Well, as I said earlier, why I don't think WWE has done a women's only show. Pay-per-view, yes. WWE Network special, yes. But I don't see regular TV. I don't think they believe the ratings are as strong. But the funny thing about it is they have enough talented women on the roster that I think they could get a very strong rating. It's just how much WWE utilizes them. Then what happens if they do get a strong rating? Do you keep women's wrestling as a separate show? Then what happens with pay-per-view? So you start going down a path that might be a little bit complicated. So, it's hard to say. That's why, like I said, with NXT and AEW, that's why I bring up quarter-hour ratings, to show what individuals are drawing and not drawing. And you can't always blame it on playoffs or this or that or this. So, let's see. And he listens to the breakdown segment. And yes, he just said he notices that women are usually clinging to the bottom of the ratings. Again, WWE does it more strategically than AEW. Look at the quarter-hour ratings or the results of NXT for the last 2 or 3 months, and look at where the big women's names are placed. No disrespect to Xia Li and some others. They're a lot lower on the food chain in women's wrestling. But look at the bigger women's wrestling stars in NXT. See where they're placed during the night, and you'll see a pattern. So, and finally, for tonight, James Smith, besides Terry Funk, who's my favorite wrestler? I obviously said that earlier. Snuka, Morocco, Foley, 3, just to name it. I have others as I got older, but those were my favorites growing up. On my Twitter feed right now, if you look at my profile picture, it's me in 1998 taking a picture of Cactus Jack and Terry Funk when they were WWF Tag Champs. And the big picture, I have to obviously crop it because of Twitter, but the big picture is cool because they both have the tag titles, and I posed with them. I drove all the way to Philly, got to hang out with them after, and on the way home, Terry Funk did for people that don't know the story, went all the way to Philly to meet them, ate lunch after with them. Then on the way home, Terry Funk did a shoot interview with our video. If you actually watch the shoot interview, you'll actually hear me on there. I actually asked a question when I had gotten home from driving to Philly. And the best part about it is when I got home, I got into a road rage incident with someone, and they followed me all the way to my parents' house in Middle Village. And when we both got out of the cars, my ex and the girl in the other car were pulling each other's hair. And my mother runs out of the house. What's going on? Oh, my God. And the cops were called, and they ended up driving away. So all in one day, I got to meet 2 of my favorites of all time. And I met both of them many times after that. My God, the stories I've told about Foley, specifically, driving to Connecticut to see Terry Funk against Louis Ramos. Beautiful match. Louis chipped. If you ever met Louis and you see him with half a tooth, ask him where he got half a tooth. Fought Terry Funk in Connecticut. Broke his tooth in half. He has the other half, I think, stored away as a memento. I was there. I saw it in person. And that's why he never fixed the tooth. could always tell everyone this is Terry Funk. So, but yeah, those are my favorites. But anyway, we did 3 hours. A little long, but I wanted to answer everybody's question fairly, and I hope I did that. And like I said, we will do these now every 2 weeks to keep the questions, a little bit less so we could get these episodes done a little bit less. Please post your comments in the comment section. If you have questions that you want to submit for the next episode, post it here as well. All I ask again is, one, don't troll, because I'm not even going to bother getting into it. If you notice, nobody trolled this episode. This is awesome. Not one trolling question. Some people were shadow banned, but we didn't see them. And also keep your questions simple so I could get through them quickly. I don't have to pull research. I don't, this was awesome because I didn't have to pull research for anything. So just keep them, short to the point. You could ask as many as you want. Rapid fire, hell, I don't care how many you ask. And we'll do it again in 2 weeks. So much love as always. Thank you for being a supporter of what we all do. And if you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. It's cool. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe so you are alerted when additional shows come out. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So everyone, much love as always, and I will talk to you all again with your next Q&A. And remember, let me know what you want to call these from now on. So right now, we'll just keep it with Q&A, Ask Me Anything, 2 weeks from today. Ciao, everybody.